5 to the hour race start, 3:55 local time. But in very hot race cars anyway, on an incredibly warm day, this could be quite a long wait for those installed for the opening stint. And one of my biggest concerns is how much that Arco barrier had beveled on driver's right. So you got the yellow and black Claudio Schiavone Iron Lynx Ferrari weaving from left to right. And often the rule is if you're using more than half of the racetrack between white line to white line, then that is excessive weaving. And people have been penalised in the past, not necessarily in this series, but behind the safety car. I've seen it in touring car events before. If you're weaving to the extent that almost your car is out of control and you are not able to place where other cars are, then you're going to risk an incident like that. However, you know, could you also blame the car trying to overtake, trying to slip by on the left side, unannounced, that Schiavone just did not see? Still trying to get a 100% ident on exactly that red Ferrari, because as John has mentioned, the paint job for the Kessel cars rather similar. So Rino Mastronardi going to have to wait in his pole position, and the same goes for Nicola Molini in his Cool Racing Ligier. A first ever pole, by the way, for Cool Racing in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Michelin Le Mans Cup starting in 2016 as a GT3 exclusive championship, although that year there were LMP3s at the Road to Le Mans event. 2 races held that year at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and I think it was judged to be such a great success that LMP3s were then permanently introduced into the Michelin Le Mans Cup from season 2017.
So if you're just joining us and expecting us to be rolling on a formation lap right now, we have news. That's not happening anytime soon. On the original lap out of the Grand Prix pits, actually, let's tell this story. It's going to take a bit of telling. These cars are based in the endurance pits for the Michelin Le Mans Cup race. So they came out of the endurance pits, joined the track just after the top of the hill, and headed up the Kemmel Straight. They came round into the Formula One pits, as you might want to call them, this weekend, the European Le Mans Series pits. But you know where I mean if I place them like that on the front straight, if you will. Then they were released onto the track to drive round to the grid. So the pit lane was closed and then opened and sent round to the grid. On that lap to the grid, the number 77 Iron Lynx Ferrari, Claudio Schiavone on board, weaving left and right on the Kemmel Straight, comes to the left-hand side of the track and finds a Kessel Racing Ferrari, as yet unidentified, but if we watch the Kessel Racing mechanics very carefully, we'll see which car they go to, and they've got a new set of tyres there, so they must be worried about right-side tyres on that car. Not big contact, but enough under the weaving to send Claudio Schiavone off to the right-hand side into heavy and acute angle contact with the 4-layer Armco on the right-hand side. Remember, not much runoff on either side of the Kemmel Straight there. And bounced then back onto the track. Now we're seeing Broniszewski's car, the 74. So, JP, it looks like your initial thought was right, and it was likely Michael Broniszewski who was involved there. The Iron Lynx car will not be starting this race unless it's delayed till about Tuesday, and they've got time to rebuild it. Well, 3 of 4 corners at least with damage, wheels hanging off, bodywork being recovered, and it needs a lift to get it out of the way. Start is delayed whilst that is going on, and presumably while the track services are looking as well at the state of the 4-layer Armco on driver's right there, on about half, 2/3 of the way up the Kemmel Straight. Now, although the start is delayed, the procedure for teams being allowed on the grid is normal. So you will see team personnel on the grid, and in fact at the moment, because we haven't got down into the countdown zone, it does mean that Broniszewski's car can take a tyre change on the grid. I'm pretty certain that we haven't got to the stage where that is not allowed. The clean-up is considerable on the Kemmel Straight. And that, I mean, that didn't look that fast. That just tells you, doesn't it, JP, how much energy these cars are carrying, even at half speed, 60% down there. I mean, you'd normally be at pretty much VMAX at that point, which makes you think, good heavens, if that had happened at full speed, what would that have looked like? I mean, that's a lot of damage to the Armco and to that Ferrari.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, you're not talking a great deal of real estate between the edge of the track and the Armco barrier, but the foreshortening of the camera that peers from Lecombe down to the King, another chance to call you through it. I just wonder why that Ferrari was trying to get past as well. Maybe for its position on the grid. It's definitely 74 on the nose. And 74 Michel Broniszewski positioned further up on the grid. I think that's what he's trying to do. He's thinking, I need to start second here, Claudio, so let me past. Schiavone far more concerned about flicking the car from left to right to heat up the tyres. Total misunderstanding between the two, and that's what can result. And Broniszewski, if he's got away with that, then that's just unbelievable in terms of car setup. You know, how's that car going to develop over the next 120 minutes? Because it will have knocked out the setup that you know, is done meticulously with the stringing of a car at the start of the day. And even if it's just a sideways, side-to-side glancing blow, that's still going to have knocked quite a bit out of alignment.
Yeah, and I think it was so close to being a flat side-to-side, they might have got away with it. It'll just depend. On all of these GT cars, although they are closed wheel cars in the sense of it's not a single-seater with the wheels out in the airflow, the amount of camber, the amount that the bottom of the tyre sticks out further than the top is quite considerable, particularly on the front. And it will depend if that's being caught. It's the same on the back, it's not, sometimes not quite as much. And it'll just depend whether that's being caught and maybe done a suspension arm or a toe link or something like that within those cars. So we've now been told by race control that in just on 4 minutes' time, we'll get the 5-minute board. So 3 minutes past the coming hour, which is 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in the Ardennes region, we will get the 5-minute board. And at that point, then the teams will know that the work that they are doing on the grid has to stop. So we are, I mean, it is so hot out there. The teams are searching out, the team members sensibly searching out a bit of shade from the grandstand on driver's left just before the starting line. Check that, the finish line, I suppose. The starting line is the one further down, isn't it?
Yeah, 122 metres between the two, I seem to remember reading at the start of the weekend. Yeah, and similar to Le Castellet, the start line in a different position from the finish line.
It's not unusual. Same with Courter as well.
Well, it means that the rolling start grid, the pack, can all be on the start-finish straight when we get going, rather than it all being looped through the bus stop chicane and you won't be able to see the lights then. So much better that everybody's all on the start line together. The finish line, though, is deliberately in the acceleration zone out of the bus stop chicane so that then you've got ample time to stop before La Source if you're racing somebody to the line.
By the way, I think we guessed this, but we are hearing from the team that Claudio Schiavone is okay. Standard procedure, he may well have to go and see the doc and just have that signed off.
He'd been picked up by a medical car. It'll be straight to the medical centre, and I'm sure he'll be fine. But, you know, always better to be cautious rather than anything else. So that, as you say, is strict protocol to give him the once-over. Make sure, because concussion can often hit pretty late on and not be evident straight away. That was a big hit as well from what looked like quite a slow speed. But as I say, from the foreshortening of the camera, that really does show. Until a car starts going towards the scenery, you think, oh, that's quite a sedate speed, really. Blimey, no, it wasn't at all. The shelter, the umbrellas, are being steadily removed then from this grid And I'm pleased to say it's still 2 hours at the top of the timing screen, so it's not eating into the race time, this, even though we are scheduled to, well, 5 minutes to... There'll be a 5-minute board, rather, at 3 minutes past 4. So that'll be 13 minutes late in total, won't it, before the cars are then released onto their rolling lap.
Official temperature, as far as what we've got, is air temperature 35.1, track temperature 33. That's Celsius, of course. Now, that's getting up there. And it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's going to be hotter tomorrow for the ELMS, the European Le Mans Series, which you can also see and hear live wherever you're watching or listening to this now. You'll get that tomorrow, full, live, around the world with no blocks or breaks, and in sound and vision for you. Again, just underlining the European Le Mans Series and Le Mans Cup and their commitment to getting it out there, and particularly with no fans in the stand, then we know many of you would have made this trip, and I'm sorry to say you would have thoroughly enjoyed. Actually, do you know what? It's almost too hot to sit in anywhere other than the shade and watch motor racing at the moment. There would have been a lot of very lobster pink people back on Eurotunnel on Sunday afternoon stroke evening. But it is a beautiful place to be at this time of the year, and somewhat surreal, it has to be said, coming into the circuit and getting around the circuit at a top-class meeting, as this certainly is. But free, live, and no blocks across the world for the coverage in sound and vision this weekend. And lovely to be back in the ELMS paddock, working for the first time in a number of years. I think we worked out, didn't we, JP? It was end of 2016 at Portugal, the last race for the Open Top P2 cars that I last was guesting and making trouble for you in your commentary box.
That's right. Just feels like last week, to be honest. Can't believe it's quite 4 years ago, but there we are.
I had to check that. I have to say I thought it was 17.
Yeah. No, 16 does make sense. And, of course, since then, the Portuguese round of the ELMS and the Michelin Le Mans Cup has moved to Portimao rather than Estoril. Still a cracking area of Portugal.
1 minute board on the grid. Clear the grid immediately. 1 minute board on the grid. Start your engines.
So engines beginning to fire.
It's going to be a short minute.
Speaking of Portugal things, hopefully you were hearing Eduardo Freitas there with a little bit of advice from the countdown. And yeah, Eduardo just making sure that everyone knew that the 1 minute board was going to be shown at 4 minutes past 4. We're at that point now, so a little bit more time chiselled away.
30 seconds.
Because initially it was going to be 5 minutes. 5 minute board at 3 minutes past the hour. Well, we found some wriggle room there. Still got the full quota of 2 hours as well on the bill, which is great news. Obviously, the officials have been down to the Armco barrier halfway along the Kemmel Straight and assessed that as safe, as the green flag is waved, and we can finally get the formation lap proper underway, John.
Nicola Molini just a little bit, well, circumspect, I'll say, getting away. And Tom Chloe in Mühlner Motorsports, number 21, the blue and white car, on the outside of the front row, didn't know whether he could go or not. He sort of went, oh, hang on a second, the pole man's not gone. Oh, have I done something wrong? Better take it easy, which he's done.
Always best to double check these things, lose a bit of time off the grid rather than incurring a massive penalty, which will become enforced in the race. Even if you're a little bit tardy away, as long as you are not the last car to leave the grid, as the sorry sides of the Ferrari of Claudio Schiavone now reaches the base of Eau Rouge, but on one of the internal routes rather than the racetrack, that's going to have to go, well, fair chunk of that Ferrari straight in the bin. I don't think it will have done damage to the integral structure of the chassis. Anyway, there we are. Here's the grid. Nicola Molini and Tom Clayet on the front row. Great job for Cool Racing and Molini. A first pole in Michelin Le Mans Cup history. Racing Experience will start third in an all-Luxembourgish second row because DKR Engineering Jean Gloria starts fourth. Rory Penttinen of Finland for Graf alongside Tony Wells from Middlesbrough in the UK. Nielsen Racing. Morris Smith, again of Cool Racing, joins Belgian Eric de Donker for Motorsport 98. They're at their home meeting. It's an all-United Autosports fifth row with John Schauerman on the inside and Daniel Schneider of Brazil on the outside. Then a CD Sport car. It's Michael Jensen to start that. CD Sport of Spain, and Rob Hodes, the American, for Nielsen Racing. Steve Parrow, involved in a big crash at Le Castellet 3 weeks ago, will start from 13th alongside Jacques Wolf, and it's Christophe Cresp and Mark Crader to complete the LMP3 lineup. And then we're into 5 GT3 cars. Sadly, Rino Mastronardi with the second pole position of the year, starting alongside Mikhail Broniszewski. Let's see how fit his car is for proceedings after clashing with Claudio Schiavone, absent now on the grid and heavily damaged. Murad Sultanov for Kessel Racing, and it is a Kessel Iron Lynx combination at the back with John Hartshorn, despite that extra lap, as we were sorting all the cars out from their various homing points this weekend to the starting spots. John Hartshorn is there on the grid alongside Michel Gatting. And Michel is a silver-rated driver with, I think, all bronze ahead. So she could certainly make some progress in the early stages. Yes, I'm right there. So don't be surprised to see the number 9 car vault its way possibly to the class lead in the very early stages of this second round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. 2 hours. Each of your 2 drivers must do at least 55 minutes of driving, and also you must do a pit stop of equal or greater than 1 minute and 45 seconds. A drive-through here takes about 23-24 seconds from pit in to pit out, but yeah, your minimum pit stop time, and this stands for LMP3 tomorrow in ELMS as well, 1 minute and 45 seconds. So John and I are going to be looking out for those stops that are 1 minute 43, 1 minute 44, because that's not allowed. Sign being held by one of our marshals reads grid, and that is the instruction to get side by side into rolling start formation. It is a pace car out front, the Porsche WEC car. Of course, that's here this weekend in readiness for the World Endurance Championship next weekend.
Lights are out on that car. That will peel off right-handed into the normal pit lane entry. And then Nicolas Molini will have control of the field, and he's gone. Oh, I thought he was going to go a bit early there. We've not heard green called yet by Eduardo. 2 lovely lines on either side of the grid hatchings.
Yeah, and they're making sure they're as level as possible. Normally a start like this is looked back upon, and it looks like a cracking start for Jean Gloria, who didn't qualify well, but the orange and black number 3 car threading the eye of the needle there from 4th to 2nd already. Now, is this next bit going to be clean? Because so often it is not. A Nielsen Racing LMP3 car runs wide. So far so good though in terms of no contact, and the GT3 Ferraris at the back all trying to find enough space for one another. This one as well sorts everybody out, which is Eau Rouge and Radion. Oh, and there's a little bit of contact, I think, between the Racing Experience car and who's that creeping up behind? Rory Penttinen for Graf, I reckon, number 26. So it's going to be Rory Penttinen, and for Racing Experience, Nicolas Mella, absolutely side by side at the top of the hill into Le Combe. Round the outside goes Rory and bags the place. 3rd position for the Finn.
If you thought you saw yellow flags waving there on the Kemmel Straight, no, it wasn't. It was the yellow and red, the rubbish on the track. Something on the track that shouldn't be there. It can mean debris, it can mean fluids, but of course that was for the detritus from the Schiavone incident earlier on. But a clean start, JP, and sighs of relief up and down the pit lane as the 77 incident, Schiavone, and the 74 Broniszewski under investigation on that original formation lap to the grid, or out lap, in fact, to the grid.
And also the standard race start under investigation. We always get that to make sure that everyone was in their correct places. So let's not get too concerned, and far more focused on a battle between the number 6 car of CD Sport, Jacques Wolf, almost going door handle to door handle with Rob Hodes in his Nielsen Racing car. That is the dice for 11th position as Nicolas Molini goes through the split at the 2nd sector, the end of the second sector, and on towards Blanchimont to complete his first lap. Nicolas Molini for Cool Racing leads the motor race by 1.5 seconds from new 2nd place car Jean Gloria. DKR Engineering started 4th, now runs 2nd. Rory Penttinen with an awesome move around the outside of Le Combe on the opening lap to get 3rd position away from Nicolas Mella. So Graf now ahead of Racing Experience, and it looks like Tony Wells will complete the first lap in 5th, ahead of Maurice Smith in the 2nd of the Cool Racing cars. GT3 is still led by Rino Mastronardi in the black and white car, ahead of Michel Broniszewski, the 74 car under question perhaps for his part in the incident, again side by side, and there's now a bit of trim trailing from the CD Sport car, so rear right Jacques Wolf starting to flap away. I hope that's not what they call the legality panel or the bullet which sits right behind the rear wing, because that's got to be intact. It's not, so the tail light is still in its correct position. So fast through Eau Rouge, even on this, the second lap, with tyre temperature still building.
And heavy cars will make that feel really, really sluggish. They'll still feel way better than any road car you would take up there, but the cars themselves will feel like they never want to turn, and they'll be bouncing around, trying to just avoid the worst of the undulations heading up the hill there towards Radion. Merlini then from pole position did what he needed to do, got away from the line. We'll get the message in the moment from race control to tell us that they're happy with the start, but it seemed pretty clean to me, certainly at the sharp end of the field. I was looking back, further back down to see if anybody broke ranks, and I couldn't see it. A huge roar from the V8 engines from the LMP3s at the front of the field signalled before we even saw the green flag decals come up, or warning, should I say, come up on the timing screen, that in fact they'd had the shout from their teams. And this has been a decent getaway for Merlini in that Ligier.
Yeah, Merlini, the bronze, he shares the car with Edouard Corhope, also a Frenchman, but he is the silver-rated driver. Generally, that's the combination teams decide on, a bronze and a silver, although there are 1 or 2 golds to come later on, looking at Andy Merrick and Andrea Piccini, also Giacomo Piccini, the latter, the Piccini brothers, racing in the GT3 category, and Giacomo will be taking over from Rino Mastronardi, who currently leads the GT3 part of the race. I did say to look out for Michelle Gatting. She's already overtaken 3 cars, from 6th position now up to 3rd, and the second best of the Iron Lynx Ferraris. Long line of LMP3s cross the line together. Both Ligier and Duquesne's involved there. And the leader of this particular pack is Tom Cloet, who is from Belgium and is ahead of compatriot Eric de Donker. So Moulin Motorsport battling with Motorsport 98 for 7th and 8th places, as Merlini has an open road in front of him through that right-hand kink and still climbing along the Kemmel Straight and up to the highest part of the circuit, which is Les Combes. Old track used to turn left. These days we turn right, left and right and plummet downhill towards Bruxelles.
Sorry, I'm just processing the thought of these cars turning left and heading down to Bernaville with the kind of downforce they've got, and then heading down towards the Master King.
Yeah, the mind boggles with that, doesn't it?
I can't cope with that.
That is very much 2 worlds and 2, I don't know, universes colliding there. Wouldn't it be good? I'm sure that combination can be achieved on a simulator somewhere.
Don't even think about it. Don't even
Somebody's
think
tried
about
it, in fact. Only 5 minutes in, it feels like we've done half an hour of this, because there's been plenty of action, and Michel Broniszewski is now having to fend off the aforementioned Michelle Gatting. From the back of the pack, she is the only non-bronze to start the GT3 race then, and as suspected, trying to slice her way up to, ideally, the class lead. Not very far away from that now. In the pink Ferrari, she's 3rd. The white-black Ferrari currently leads the class. Threading their way through Le Fagna corner, and they're down the short hill towards campus, so called because of the Motorsport College on the inside of that right-hander. This whole area used to be called Stavelot, named after the nearby town, of course. And curve Paul Frere, as it is now deemed, and up towards Blanchimont corner, which is, well, you can't see the exit of this corner. You just have to hope the track's in the same place as it was a lap ago and just keep the right foot buried.
It's very quick, even in a road car. Possibly not quite flat in most mere mortal road cars, but it's not far away. And it's actually slightly uphill again there from Paul Frere towards Blanchimont. But it was the only place that I got into top gear around the track when I was driving around here. Couldn't get into top gear on the run from the top of Radion, which is where the leader is now. It's just a long drag, and the revs are rising, but rising very slowly again. and just couldn't get into top, couldn't get into sixth.
Gatting has a little think about a move on Broniszewski into La Source, thinks better of it though, but quite clearly Michel's carrying a bit more speed than Michel ahead, Michel Broniszewski that is.
Very little evidence of damage on the right-hand side of Broniszewski's car, and indeed even the right-hand rear-view mirror, which does protrude out from the bodywork on that beautifully manufactured and designed aerodynamic fixing that's on the side of the car, past the scene of the crime and through some of the dust there.
Yes.
As Michel Gatting tries to go the long way around into Le Combe, taking a huge amount of speed. So the minimum speeds between those two Ferraris very much different, and perhaps an opportunity round the outside of the downhill right-handed hairpin that they're at the moment.
Yeah, you don't want to be running over that debris ground too many times though, because it could be all sorts of nasty stuff in the dust there from a weird old moment on the release lap from the Grand Prix pit lane when Claudio Schiavone ended up being turned around, or after a result of excessive weaving turned himself around perhaps. It won't have taken a great deal to invert that Ferrari by 180 degrees. It smashed into the barrier and did two corners as quickly as you could blink, and obviously couldn't take the start, and that incident is still being reviewed.
2:17.7, the best lap of the race, and it is by Cool Racing's leading car. Nico Molini has built up a tidy 4-second lead as he crosses the line now and heads off down towards the right-hander at La Source. Slow, but not as slow as you think. Get the car slowed down, turn in, balance it, and you can get on the throttle pretty early.
Team down at Iron Lynx, not getting ready for a pit stop, I am sure, because these drivers need to be in their cars for at least 55 minutes. Now, if there's an early safety car, sometimes there is an option to do your long stop, minute and 45, get that out of the way during the safety car, and then do the driver change later in the race. But generally speaking, you do the two at the same time. It is a minimum pit stop reference time because some of these teams are brand new to GT and prototype racing, and it's really to make sure that the field can be equalised when they come into their stops, because you've got sometimes fully professional teams up against lesser experienced squads, and you want to make sure that they can turn their cars around at a similar speed, just to make sure we've got a race all the way to the flag. So they're given a minute and 45. You can't go any quicker than that when you make your mandatory stop. The 21 car of Tom Clayette still not able to shake from the attentions of Eric de Donker, and this remains the battle for 7th position. John Schauerman just in the background for United Autosports. That's the best United car in the order, ahead of Daniel Schneider, the sister machine at that team. But definitely one car that was on the move in the early stages, Rory Penttinen, up to 3rd place from his qualifying spot of 5th. And also, wasting no time at all, was Jean Gloria, who shares his car with Laurence Heur. And Gloria, a former champion in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, again with DKR Engineering. Cool, not much of the Ferraris left on the track there coming out of turn 9. Speaker's Corner, as it's often called, because it's just about the only corner you can see over in the far side from the commentary boxes on the main straight here at Spa-Francorchamps. And through the double gauche, or Pouhon left-handers. And then get the car set up for Le Combe, which is a tricky S-bend, the right followed by the left. Ease the power back in. Plenty of curb taken again from both Broniszewski and Gatting. And then hustle the car from the right-hand side to the left to get the ideal racing line into Campus Corner. So Nicola Molini, after 5 laps, leading by almost 5 seconds in LMP3 from Jean Gloria, who appears not to be able to have an answer just yet for the 39-year-old Frenchman who leads the race. Rory Penttinen is in 3rd position for Graf, and Nicola Mellin, after a good little dice between those two cars early doors, now drifting to 4.5 seconds behind the Finn. So this is starting to stabilise. The next thing we need to think about is tyre wear, though, across the stint, because it's a fair chunk of time, 55 minutes. Also, where are these teams going to utilise their extra stop? Because enforced, because of a very thirsty Orica engine this season, is an extra 40-second stop that needs to be done. and that is in the supplementary regulations as it was for Le Castellet 3 weeks ago.
Fastest time
What happened here?
Sorry, I'll let you get over that first.
Some contact almost into the back of Marc Crader. That was Christophe Cresp. Yes, it was for MV2S Racing. So Christophe Cresp and Marc Crader battling over 14th place. Grain Market Racing, which is effectively a Nielsen Racing car underneath the skin, but run as Grain Market for sponsorship reasons. And the 7th place fight rages on out of turn number 9 and down the hill towards Pouhon Corner. Very different line there taken by Tom Cloet compared to Eric de Doncker. I noticed Cloet putting the car in the middle of the road, whereas de Doncker keeping as close to the curbs as he can.
Best time in the GT3 category is the leader, Rino Mastronardi for Iron Lynx. That's the number 8 car. A very creditable with a heavy car, 2:23.2. And he's a good 2:23.2. He's a good 4 or 5 tenths ahead of anybody. Meanwhile, the battle we were watching earlier on for second position, which is they're not getting dropped by the leader, but Iron Lynx's driver of the number 9, Michelle Gatting, will be, I think, somewhat frustrated that she hasn't been able to get on terms. They've gone with their silver driver at the start of the race here amongst the bronzes, and it would have been her job to get through the traffic and pull out a gap.
Yeah, and obviously the higher up the order you get, the more difficult it is to overtake, and there's no doubt that Broniszewski, with all his Ferrari experience through the years, and generally with Kessel Racing, I remember him doing a couple of Gulf 12 hours a few years back, and has raced, for instance, in 24-hour races in the GT3 world, like Dubai at the start of the year too, jostling for position there. That was between the two Belgians, and Eric de Doncker getting the place in the end on Tom Cloet, who wasn't on the ideal line. This might be Michelle Gatting's best opportunity. She's found the inside line at La Source, and now it is a drag race all the way down the hill past that giant grandstand to drivers left and over the second start line that's sometimes utilised here at Spa-Francorchamps, not this weekend admittedly. Gets the place after really jostling for position all the way down the hill towards Eau Rouge, but the pink and black car from Iron Lynx finally up to second place, and it is now an Iron Lynx 1-2 in fact. So, and Tom Cloet's going to lose another position here to John Schauerman, I reckon, because up at the end of the Campbell Straight, Cloet didn't really hold Schauerman back a great deal, kept the door wide open and said, "After you, John." So through he goes, and Tom now maybe a little bit on the back foot, lost 2 places in the space of 4 corners.
Well, we have to wonder, even at these early stages, what instructions have been given to drivers by team managers, and maybe there is a lap time that they're looking for. It is exceptionally hot out there, and going off hard early when the car is heavy might not be, in the big scheme of things, the thing to do. 21 cars starting this race, just about 15 minutes ago, and the thought of completely routing a set of the Michelin tyres early on, they are excellent tyres. We know that. We've seen them do 2, 3, 4 stints at Le Mans on prototypes with a little more power and a little more downforce than these LMP3 cars. But the heat that we have this weekend is excessive, and the heaviness of the car at the start of the race, there's always an element of bringing tyres in, and it's always, I think, even in a 2-hour race, which is ultimately 2 one-hour sprints tagged together, isn't it? Even with that, however you split that up with your pit stops, it's always better to be a little bit circumspect at the top of the race, or the top of a new set of tyres, and have pace in reserve at the end.
Yeah, take it easy, first half an hour or so, then you can maybe turn up the wick. It also depends on what sort of battles you're involved as well. You might have not have any choice in trying to up the ante, just in an effort to stay ahead of Tony Wells, for instance, who might be pursuing you, as is the case with Nicolas Melat. So Wells applying the pressure, a incredibly frightening moment for Tony Wells in the ELMS race 3 weeks ago, when the rear wing on his LMP3 car failed at the end of the Mistral straight, and that is not somewhere where into senior corner you want to lose all your rear downforce. So that will have grabbed his attention. And since then, those cars have had all of their rear wings effectively re-engineered. So there's not the design stayed as it is, but potentially a bad batch as far as the struts were concerned and the bracket. So all of that's been looked at and the new batch has been produced. Out of the right-hander at Curve Paul Frere goes this scrap then, which involves Tony Wells. Wells currently running in 5th position. He's chasing Mellat, who is 4th. Rory Penton remains in 3rd. And he's only got now 3 seconds to try and find on John Gloria. So I just wonder whether those two are getting closer and closer to one another for 2nd place. There's no doubt about the race leader, though, and his dominance. Nicola Morlini now 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Over the line goes Nicolas Mellat and Tony Wells, almost as one. It's the cool racing car of Maurice Smith in the background, running in 6th place. And Maurice and his teammate now Matt Bell. Maurice could have had a very good race at Le Castellet. They were in the box seat to take victory when an issue hit with a puncture, and they had to stop just short of the race finish. So could have been such a different story for that area of the cool racing garage. Matt Bell, by the way, put into that car to replace Ben Barnicoat, although I think it was Matt's gig for the whole of the year. It's just that Matt was busy in North America 3 weeks ago and couldn't do the meeting at Le Castellet, so Ben Barnicoat did the gentlemanly thing and stood in for him. Oh, very late on the brakes there for the 24 car, and right old bunking Bronco to rejoin the track as well for Daniel Schneider, Brazilian driver. So he overcooked it into the bus stop and then leapt over the sausage curb to rejoin.
Again, heavy car, just maybe caught out with these braking points coming in. That wasn't him deliberately taking a shortcut, JP. He'd missed his braking point on the way into the bus stop, so the original right-hander, and he'd taken way too much speed in there. Goes off to the left-hand side. That's where momentum, that's where the physics is taking you. And rather than try and pinch the corner and get it back, which would have risked a spin, he decided to go over the inside curb. But he went over the biggest part of the inside curb, launched it. He may have done some floor damage there. There is just a little bit of room to the left-hand side there, and sometimes it's better bailing out earlier in the piece. He may have fought that one a little too much and been able to get around effectively the left-hand side of that curb and not put his car in danger.
As long as you don't go full Brendan Hartley and go the left side of the Marshall post as well, which he did a few years ago in LMP1.
He had to show his pass before he was back on the track by Lassos.
Somewhat. The race starts, no problems with that, no further action, and from a different angle, everybody's actually pretty well placed.
I liked it. The two leaders were right over the hash marks of the grid, and everybody followed that. Very clean start indeed.
Despite Jean Gloria's great getaway, he was in 4th place across the start line, which is the crucial thing. And then he slotted between the racing experience and the 26 Graf car of Rory Penton to bag himself 2nd place, and he's never looked back since, apart from the fact that he's 13 seconds adrift now of Nicola Morlini. Can't seem to do anything about closing that gap. Tony Wells, I think it was, in the Nielsen car. Yeah. If not Rob Hogue. No, it might be Rob Hogue's actually, because Rob's still recovering now from that off-track moment on the exit of Lassos.
He was very smart there. First lap, you're never really going to get penalised for going that wide at Lassos, particularly if there's a bit of a schmozzle on your right-hand side. But he didn't try to rejoin immediately because there's a curb there, as beautifully illustrated there by I think that was the 3rd place car, was it, that was doing that. And he then rejoined at the flat part of the circuit further down, and I think that was smart driving by Rob. He's got a lot of experience, done the prototype challenge in LMP3 cars in the States, done a bit of Porsche racing across there as well in the IMSA Challenger Series. He'd be loving this at the moment. And now the leader is coming up to start some lappery, and it'll be John Hartshorn in the red and white Kessel car. Apologies to John for misidentifying him as the involved party. I had a go at all 3 of the Kessel racing cars, and Johnny got it first time. So
I have done an extra race than you this year.
Oh yeah, one whole race. Yeah, Murad and John, my apologies. It was Broniszewski who was involved with Schiavone.
And we haven't yet had any more information on that. It's being investigated. I don't think it's going to be top of Eduardo Freitas' in-tray, because it was sort of extracurricular activities really before we got going. Well, he might take the viewpoint of, well, if you're up to that sort of thing outside of the race that I should be judging, then I'm going to leave it till later on in the day. You know, let's focus on getting this race officiated in the correct manner.
I may be reading too much into this, but if anything was going to happen to Broniszewski, I would think they'd be taking a longer look at it and maybe do something now within the race.
Yeah.
If it's going to be NFA'd or it's going the other way and Schiavone is getting some or all of the blame, then it kind of really doesn't matter at this point, because that's been self-policing.
Indeed.
Again, I might be putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, but as you rightly say, there's more going on, including Rory Penttinen now staring at the back of the DKR Engineering LMP3, ahead of him of Jean Glorieux. And the Duquesne knee, just missed his braking point there. The Duquesne knee Norma, of course, which is in second position at the moment, just running a little bit wide again. So it looks like Jean is beginning to feel the pressure. Now, the worst thing that Jean Glorieux can do right now is start looking to see where Rory Penttinen is. He's coming up the traffic. He's got to, and you'll often hear the crew chiefs, team managers, focus forward. Focus forward. Just hit your marks, turn in, get on the throttle, do what you need to do. Forget that car is behind him. It's up to Rory Penttinen to decide how he's going to get by. And the more you look at him, the more you'll slow yourself down, the more you will not be looking at where your turning point. And oh, hang on a second. All of a sudden, I'm right up the tailpipes of the Kessel Ferrari and I've boxed myself in. That's the sort of thing that can happen.
Yeah, very easily done. The 67 car of Murad Sultanov a moment or two ago.
Turning in. That's the favourite here.
Yeah. Well, the reference point is when you start to bend the mirror back, you think, right, that's where I need to turn in.
I've never let you race my car. I've never let you race my car.
I think I've watched too much Aussie touring car racing around the streets. But yeah, once you bend the mirror back, you think, right, that's as far as I need to go now. And we'll just keep it like that for the rest of the race.
That's coming down the all pit straight, just as far over the right-hand side as you can be, so you try to straighten out the entry into Eau Rouge, and you might just sometimes get a little bit of rotation on the car so that you can clip that wall on your right-hand side. And don't forget the driver sitting on the left in those Ferraris, so very difficult indeed to be able to judge how much room you've got left.
And the driver then very much on the high side as he turns right through Eau Rouge, and then through Radillon, which is slightly more favourable for your driving position.
It looks like a brick wall when you head into the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, like a dead end, you mean.
It's like, you know, you think, I've seen this so many times, but the first time you come on it at speed, even if it's a street car, a road car that you're driving around, and you drop down there, and most road cars, you need to get in and take as much momentum as you can, then change down a gear to get you to pull up the hill. That is how steep that is. And you see it and you think, it's filled my windscreen now. Where am I going?
Penttinen's got through, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And Jean Glorieux looks like he's got a right old handful on. Those tyres possibly spent already.
My point from the beginning of the race,
yeah,
JP.
Pushing very, very hard on a heavy car, and all of a sudden, in these hot temperatures, 35, 36 degrees Celsius, he can barely keep the car on a racing line through Bruxelles corner, and also struggling for traction and turn-in at turn number 9 as well. And bear in mind, we've had 27 minutes of this race, so Glorieux, even if he pits bang on the 55-minute mark, has got another half an hour to do, pretty much, on those tyres. Dear me, Jean Glorieux, who I thought might be a bit of a specialist around here at his home track. There is a slow car out on circuit. This is one of the Graf cars.
Is that left rear puncture?
Or is it Cool Racing? 69. So it is the Cool Racing car of Maurice Smith.
That car's got some kind of problem at the back, and whether it's a tyre going down or whether it's a loose wheel or a suspension issue, but I'm guessing that they've got a problem at the left rear of that car. Has he clipped something and knocked it out of true? Might have been a bit of side-by-side contact.
Neither of those cars, because that's the 10 and the 6 machines battling over 10th position. Jack Wolf back ahead. No, Rob Hote had bagged the place at Le Com corner. Doesn't provide an answer though as to what was the issue for Maurice Smith, who's still there in 6th position. The very slow sector is the middle one, where it's taken him 12, 13, 14 seconds more time than those around him. So maybe a spin, maybe an off-track moment into the gravel. Couldn't see a slow puncture on any of those Michelin tyres, but we were really only being treated to the left-hand side of his car. So who knows what the right was doing.
Yeah, take it from the side that's least damaged when you put it in the Auto Trader. That's the thing you can do.
Deliberately so.
Kevin Payne asking the reasonable question, JP. Driver ratings form a big part of the strategies here in this race. We mentioned Michelle Gatting is the only silver out in GT3 at the moment, and she is still, she has got ahead now of Broniszewski, so we have a chain of iron links.
Very good.
I had to look up that collective noun for links. I didn't know it, but it works really well with iron links, so I'm very happy with that one. In first and second, it's 8 from 9. Nicola Molini is the lead driver for Cool Racing, and he is what? In terms of his...
Oh, in terms of his drivers, sorry, he's bronze.
Yeah.
He's bronze and shares with a silver Matt Bell,
Penttinen is also a bronze, isn't he, from
Yes,
memory?
he is, with Matthias Kaiser as the silver driver from Liechtenstein.
Jean Glorieux
is
bronze. So the top 3 are all bronze. Nico Melin,
bronze.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, I don't think anybody's gone with their non-bronze to start the race in terms of LMP3.
No, they haven't.
That's why Michelle Gatting stood out to me in GT3, because she was the only non-bronze and is actually catching Rino Mastronardi, as we would have expected. So, I mean, the target here, no doubt about it, is to get the pink and black car to the lead of the race, although bear in mind these are both Iron Lynx cars, so it's not going to be quite as cut and thrust as Gatting versus Broniszewski was, perhaps. I mean, they obviously, with one car already out before the start, they want to keep these 2 cars in the race to the end, and ideally as a 1-2 finish, because there's already a very battered and bruised Iron Lynx Ferrari in the lower paddock, which is going to need some tender loving care between this meeting and the next at Le Castellet at the end of August. 3 LMP3 cars completely together. CD Sport, Jacques Wolf ahead of Daniel Schneider for United Autosports, and also in this train Christophe Cresp for MV2S Racing.
So that's 11th, 12th and 13th, just outside the top 10. Sure why the windscreen wiper is going on Jacques Wolf's CD Sport. Could be that he's had a bit of a moment and in flailing around has clipped the windscreen wiper lever. That would be my guess.
Or wishful thinking just to take the peak out of this temperature, because a little bit of rain would certainly make things interesting. I don't think we're going to get it though somehow. There are some darker clouds immediately above us in our start line commentary box, but the bulk of the stuff above us is bright blue sky, and it has been all day. It's going to be even hotter tomorrow, we understand as well. But you can never discount a bit of a cloud burst, maybe some way through the European Le Mans Series race tomorrow. So tricky to predict. A passing storm shower, particularly here at Spa-Francorchamps, which for the most part has its own weather system. Very unusual, even at this time of year, to have solid sunshine wall to wall. Down the hill from Bruxelles into turn number 9 then. Whoa, and almost into the barrier there for the number 6 car. He went so wide, Jacques Wolf. Still trailing that bit of bodywork from the rear right corner. Thankfully, it's not the cheese wedge shaped bit of bodywork that would immediately need to be replaced or at the next pit stop, because we saw 1 or 2 of those hanging off at Circuit Paul Ricard in the opening round, and a message quickly appearing on the screen that said car would need to solve that dilemma at the next stop,
Yeah,
which is really tricky to do. I mean, if it's just hanging off with a cable, which powers the tail light, near impossible.
Peugeot back in the day.
Yeah.
Lost a race at Silverstone, I seem to remember, because it would have taken them too long to replace the whole rear end when they came in. Finally told they had to come in and change the design of the rear end of the car after that so that it could slide on and off on a sort of a cassette system. So, yeah, it is absolutely required. Penttinen, second, Graf, red, white and blue, number 26, going through Lucombe at the end of the Kemmel Straight. A couple of track limits warnings in clearing for Murad Sultanov in the 67. I noticed, I think that Chris Cresp got one as well. Christoph Cresp got one in the MV2S Racing 27 car a little bit earlier on as well. Turn 4, top of the hill tends to be the place, and there's the traffic causing the issues.
Yes.
And a change, that was the change of position, and how Rory Penttinen got past Jean Glorieux. Just what I was saying. If you start looking at what's going on behind you, you get yourself in the wrong place. Coming out of Blanchimont, these guys are making me look good today, I'll tell you. Coming out of Blanchimont, caught up with John Hartshorne rather quicker than he thought he might do, had to go off the track, then decided he probably shouldn't go past off the track, had to lift off, and Penttinen says, thanks very much, mate, I'll have that on the left-hand side. Drives through, no strife whatsoever, and into second place, but some 20 seconds now behind Nicola Molini.
Yeah, this is really making everybody else look distinctly average from a 39-year-old, isn't it? From Geneva in Switzerland. But Molini has always been a bit of a talent. But I think this is the first time it's properly risen to the surface. And 15 laps in to have a 20-second lead is almost unheard of in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
33 and a third, not RPM, degrees. Nobody will know what I'm talking about when I've said that, will I? 33 and a third Celsius. No long play here, but certainly very hot on the track. Exactly the same for the air temperature at the moment. There is a little bit of cotton wool cloud in the sky that is giving a brief respite to the sun beating down on parts of the circuit. I do think, though, Jean Glorieux's times, now 19.9 the last time around, he's really dropping his lap times, and he's being gained on by Nico Melin, albeit slowly, but half a second, 6/10 some laps, 2/10 the next, 12.5 seconds the gap from third to fourth, so that's one to keep an eye on, and battles right the way through the field as well, as United are having, it's not United now because they've gone by.
Yeah, Schneider getting ahead of Cloet there. I think on the run out of the chicane, or maybe into it. So Cloet, who's been struggling for speed since the start of this race, actually, in the Mühlner Motorsport car. It qualified well. And it was qualified from memory by Moritz Krantz, because he was able to do the qualifying as a fellow bronze. So 2 bronze drivers entered by Mühlner Motorsport. And we'll get to see Krantz in the second half of this event. The second of, I think, 7 rounds of the year for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, once you've factored in the 2 Road to Le Mans events as well, which are an hour apiece and carry half championship points. Top of the hill, end of the Kemmel Straight, into Les Combes, and the next car that Tom Cloet's going to have to try and keep behind him is the MV2S car of Christoph Cresp. Cresp showing his intentions. Oh, big lock-up though for Cresp as he gets to the downhill approach to Bruxelles. So that will cost some time for car 27, being driven by Frenchman Cresp and Fabien Leverne to come next, who's a former champion in the GT3 part of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Leverne actually setting pole position here last year in GT3, driving at that time with his teammate Mikkel Mack. Rino Mastronardi still in the lead of GT3 as things stand, and he's weathered that storm actually, carried by Michel Gatting. They were pretty much nose to tail 5 laps ago, 2.5 seconds, though, is now the margin between the two Iron Lynx leaders. So Mastronardi, things stabilising for him. Maybe the tyres have gone through their weathered phase and now coming out of it with slightly more performance. As the cars get lighter and lighter, the lap time should start to tumble as well. And Michelle Gatting, after her forge through the order from 6th up to 2nd, probably going to settle for that spot now to the pit stop phase, which is now only 17, 18 minutes away. You can stop as early as 55 minutes. That's also a little... Oh, there's a spin. And there's a spin for John Schauerman, who just made some ground. Is it Schauerman? No, it's Schneider. Sorry, got the wrong sh sound there. And it's his teammate at United Autosports, Daniel Schneider, who'd been actually overtaking a number of cars up the inside of John Hartshorn. There was some contact, wasn't there? Because there's a bit of bodywork come off as well. Either I think it's come off the prototype rather than the Ferrari.
Spun the Ferrari as well.
Yeah.
He's going to get pinged for that, I think.
There was a gap, it was closing, and maybe he should have predicted the fact that John was going to close the door, John Hartshorn. And John, sadly, left to now try and get his car pointing in the right direction. He's going to have to do it via the pit lane, and it is too early to stop.
Oh, and the 24 hasn't come into the pit lane, and they've got Have they got damage on that car? It's certainly not tracking straight and true, is it?
No. There's certainly some damage. There's damage on the Ferrari as well.
That's right. That's right rear. That's going to be the right rear tyre. So the right-hand side of that car has taken a hammer already from before we even got to the grid. And now early on, now, it's going to be very, very hard for race control here to apportion blame there. There was a bit of a, oh, are you going, are you not? John sort of left the door open and then didn't. And then through went the United car, but there was definitely... So John got a little bit out of shape coming out of Blanchimont, and there was a chance much further back for the prototype to go through, for Daniel to go through. And then when he does go through, he's right up on the curb and makes contact with his left-hand side to the Ferrari's right-hand side.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, carrying enough speed to be able to stop the car and get through, but the problem is he didn't have the left side of the circuit to then run the car out wide, because there's a Ferrari there, and there's a question mark as to, you know, how much speed you're actually putting into the bus stop chicane at the end of the lap when you're trying to overtake somebody on your left at the same time. That's the Ferrari tyre, and
the right hand side wheels and tyre. Oh, now he's come out down the endurance pit. I thought we weren't doing that. I thought we were rejoining at La Source.
Well, remember, John's also done the extra lap as well, so he's trying all bits of the regulations here. Good question. Yeah, everybody else... Well, actually, I don't know what the message was in the driver's briefing. We haven't got to the proper pit stop phase of the race yet. This may be the instruction, and John might be actually, you know, following...
It's under investigation, as you might...
The collision, yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, John's going to cycle round it in the moment. And I'm not sure that Daniel realises that you can't actually go around Le Combe on the left-hand side. If he keeps going where he is, he's out the circuit. In fact, he stopped the car. He has pulled the car off now. Right, if he'd gone straight on there, he would have been out the circuit. He's behind the tyre barriers. It's safe. They've asked him to stop. And, if possible, actually pull the car further to the right. It could just be a ruse to get him to drive down through Burnville around the old circuit, but I think the car's a little bit too beaten up for that.
When you realise you're out of the reckoning in the race, then why not start to explore the older circuit here at Spa?
Nice thought.
Yeah, it was, and it was a good drive to that point, because he'd been able to overtake one or two. Tom Cloet was having a good battle with Christophe Cresp as well.
I think Hartshorn should have come out on the track, because on the timing screen we've got has left the pits, and that came up when he came out of the end of the F1 pits. Right. And then he stayed driver's right and didn't blend back in after La Source.
Well, pit stops tomorrow in the European Le Mans Series, without doubt, you come out immediately after La Source. So I can't understand why he wouldn't be using the same ruling in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Well, particularly as that's how the safety car led them out of the pits on the lap to the grid.
Yes, it is. That's true, because that's where we had the schmozzle with the Ferraris on the Kemmel Straight, but they had wriggled free of the pit lane before the endurance part.
Correct.
So, but as we'd said, I mean, you actually said it before we got going.
Somebody owes me
like to put a Belgian beer on the fact that somebody's going to make that error, and John Hartshorn appears to have done. I mean, the full confirmation will arrive when we get to the pit stop, somewhere between 55 and 65 minutes of this race. And does everybody fire back out onto the racetrack immediately after La Source?
Decent battle going on here for positions just outside the top 10. Müllner Motorsport, the 21 blue and white car, and it's Grain Market Racing sitting in behind. That's Tom Cloet and Mark Crader, the two drivers involved. Not too far behind. I think that's CD Sports' Michael Jensen, isn't it? In the number 5.
Yeah, and a bit of a recovery drive, perhaps.
Yes, it is.
There's the other CD Sport car that's been doing very well in the hands of Jacques Wolf.
Here we go.
But there's some time lost for the 5 car as well since the start. Mark Crader to the inside line, then down the Kemmel Straight, and Tom Cloet desperately trying to defend, but he can't hold the 20 car back of Grain Market Racing, and that will bag Mark 12th position. And that car looking very pointy indeed, changing direction very easily as it exits Les Combe corner, darting from the right-hand side of the track to the left, and being set up nicely into Bruxelles, the downhill right-hand open hairpin, and then reaching turn 9. The left-hander of no name, Pouon comes next, the double gauche, and this corner always daunting, although some think less so now because you've got a massive amount of real estate to your right to mop up any mistakes.
But it's so fast, the entry to it. You pick up speed so quickly and you turn in, still going downhill. It's an awesome corner. It's an awesome corner. But even if you go in 10 miles an hour quicker than you think you can, you've just got to tell yourself, what's the worst that can happen? I can bump over the curb, I'll get back on in a minute. And then you turn in and go, oh, actually, I was still 5 miles an hour slower than I should have been because I'm rubbish.
There's always room to go faster at Pouon, regardless of the rate that you did it the previous lap. Tom Cloet then, with every car that gets past him, he's thinking, I need to stay on the coattails of this car to just learn where the optimum braking points are. This is a place that he should know pretty well, Tom being Belgian, and it was a great dice initially with Eric de Donker, but now Eric stabilising his race in 7th position. Sadly for Tom Cloet, he's out of the top 10 now and running in 13th for Müllner Motorsport. So Michael Jensen not too far away, within a second now of challenging Cloet for 13th, and Steve Parrow for Rinaldi Racing. Rinaldi, the German squad, actually we're at Le Castellet with 2 LMP3s, but they've just got the one here this weekend in Spa, and they are running 15th. Rino Mastronardi for Iron Lynx continues to lead the GT3 part of the race by just over 5 seconds to Michał Gatting. Michał Broniszewski of Poland is in 3rd position, and the best of the Kessel Racing Ferraris. He in turn is ahead of Murat Sultanov and John Hartshorn. But Nicola Molini, very comfortable indeed, it would appear, out front in the Ligier. I think it's fair to say the Ligier is the better of the 2 chassis in the middle sector, able to really knuckle down, and the brand new Aero for 2020 on both the Ligier and the Duquet just looks that little bit more rapid on the Ligier JSP3. So down the hill towards Pouon go those 2 cars. Molini versus Penttinen continue to stretch apart. Penttinen, having battled with Jean Gloria in the early stages, now establishing this 11-second advantage. So that's Ligier back to the first of the Duquesnes, and there are 3 Duquesnes together on the timing screen then, with Gloria, Melin and Tony Wells for Nielsen Racing, all in the top 5. An hour and 13 minutes to go, so things start to get really interesting in 8 to 10 minutes time, because with the majority of the teams putting their bronze drivers in first, you have to think they'll be wanting to get them out of the cars at the earliest opportunity to put the silvers and the golds in and race to the finish. And this is where often we can see a car that qualified to the sharp end, maybe disappearing to the middle order partway through the race, but then brought back to the boil once the gun driver takes control. And Matt Bell is always cracking entertainment when that is, as far as that's concerned. So see how well Matt gets on once he takes charge in a moment or two. Ligier continued to lead from Ligier. It's Rory Penttinen impressing a number of people, I'm sure, with that getaway, and certainly working his way up the order into a strong second place, repaying the favour actually from Jean Gloria. These two cars very close to one another as well on the Kemmel Straight. So that's the slightly damaged Jacques Wolf car from CD Sport. Christophe Cresp to his inside, and the MV2S car is going to get the spot into the braking area at Les Combes corner. It was already confirmed on the timing screen because the end of the first sector is just before you hit the brakes there into the right, left, right at the top of the hill. And the two-tone coloured MV2S car, number 27, getting ahead, although running a bit deep into Bruxelles. Actually, Jacques Wolf did similar, and the net result is they're about the same distance apart. Neat and tidy on the exit for Christophe Cresp, less so for Jacques Wolf, but he'll sort things out by the time they get to Pouhon. Mark Crader, how far away is he from this battle? A good 7 seconds, actually. But now Marcus wriggled free of the attentions of Tom Cloet and Michael Jensen. Maybe Mark can just start to work his way slowly to the top 10. He's currently 12th. And also Mark, in turn, will be handing over to Alex Mortimer. He's certainly no slouch as the silver side of that driver pairing. So there is some movement now in the Grand Prix pit lane.
Yeah, 50 minutes gone in half a minute's time, JP. And that will give the opportunity, the minimum lap times, we've talked about it, with round about 30 to 31, maybe 32 laps to go. If we stay full green, that's what the predictor is saying, at this kind of pace, at Lebanon floor. So certainly in laps as well as in time, we're not quite halfway through yet. The leaders coming to the end of their 22nd hour, and a spin right at the end of the lap 4.
It's just overtaken now.
That will really annoy Christophe Cresp.
Yes, it will.
We've all done it. We've all done it. You get by, you try to set sail, and then you miss your braking point at a slow corner and have to run long, or you lose the back end. Rejoins relatively safely. Through goes the number 5 of Mikkel Jensen in the CD Sport, the red and gold car. Very lovely livery on that number 5 car. Leader, by the way, has continued to stretch away, even from Rory Penttinen, who got through to second quite some time ago now, ahead of Jean Glorieux, and he's put 13 seconds into Glorieux as Penttinen. Molini now 25 seconds ahead. He was about 19 seconds ahead when Glorieux went through. Into the pits then. Steve Parrot for Rinaldi Racing in the 66. Tom Cloet's in the pit lane as well. These will be just on, JP.
50 minutes.
50 minutes.
Yeah, which I think is actually fine. Yeah, I've been saying 55. Apologies for that. It's 5 minutes earlier than expected, but everybody is, well, 2 cars are in. And I often see 2 cars together and think, yeah, that's probably fine now. And get your new driver in.
You'll see that this is not an hectic stop, because there are minimum times to be in the pit lane. So there's no. This is about, at this level of racing, this is not about how many people you can throw on it and have 6 people at each corner and etc. etc. This is about getting this done safely, getting the wheels on properly, getting the driver seated and comfortable with belts done up. And really, it isn't about how quick you can turn the car around, it's about how quick your drivers can drive. Now, that said, you don't want to be half a minute longer in the pit lane than those around you, but there's plenty of time to have this done, and you really shouldn't be shaving it so close that you miss the minimum pit stop by a second or 2. always better to be 3 or 4 seconds over than 1 second or half a second or a few tenths short. And everybody will have timed their run through the pit lane, so they will know. Leader has stayed out, so is the second place Rory Penton Graf car. Jean Glorieux stays out, and Nielsen's Rob Hodes, now in 4th position, has stayed out. But from 5th on down, everybody's in the pit lane. Michael Jensen stayed out in the Ligier, and therefore will go through into 5th as he does now as he crosses the line. And here comes the leader.
So in from the lead of the race, Nicola Molini, and he'll come to a stop then at the Cool Racing outfit. Bear in mind they're operating 2 cars from a satellite pit area, as the number of teams are doing. Nielsen amongst them, United Autosports as well. And 1 minute 45 seconds there or thereabouts we're looking for as a minimum reference, a minimum pit stop reference time. So Rinaldi Racing playing it incredibly safe, doing a 1 minute 57 there. Maybe there was a slight hiccup. Also from Moulner Motorsport, they were over 2 minutes. 58 from the number 7 crew. So again, this is probably an adjustment from last year. I was going on last year's figures being a 1 minute 45. More like 1 minute 55, I'm going to estimate now, for Nielsen Racing, who are normally one team to run it as close as they can. And they're about 3 seconds off the absolute best time you can be in the pit lane. So better to be 3 seconds slower than certainly 3 seconds faster. And is there a drama here for the 69 car that will not restart? Or no, they're just... I wonder whether they're radioing in a panicked way to the driver. I'm not sure that was going particularly well.
That didn't sound like the starter motor was engaging properly. It really sounded like it was scraping alongside the cogs of the flywheel rather than engaging and the push drive getting into it.
So that was Maurice Smith who'd brought the 69 car in, handing it over to Matt Bell.
Jean Glorieux's leading, by the way, but owes us a pit stop.
He does, yeah. So the 2 cars that were ahead of him on the road, Nicola Molini and Rory Pentonen's Cool Racing and Graf cars, the 2 Ligiers, have come in for their stops, both on lap 23. And in a moment or two are going to rejoin after a pit stop of around about 1 minute 55 seconds. So they head through, or at least the pseudo-leader, Jean Glorieux, heads through Le Fagne corner, now heading down the hill towards Campus. Curve Paul Frere coming next. And this is the 24th lap for Jean Glorieux, who now rejoining Edouard Cohope, who is the teammate of Nicola Molini. So Cohope, you would think, will stay out in front because the lead was over 20 seconds. It was 24, 25 seconds for Nicola Molini at the point of the pit stop.
Top of the hill then, side by side onto the Kemmel Straight, and a relatively easy pass there going into Le Combe as Glorieux decides to come into the pit lane. I'll go back to that overtake in a moment, but this is crucial then for DKR Engineering. Glorieux, it has to be said, looked like he was really struggling early on. He dropped his pace after being pretty close to the leader and then dropped away, lost second, lost about 13 seconds. We speculated that it might have been the fact that he pushed too hard early on and taken too much life out of the tyres. But he's done his time, JP, and he's pretty close to the full hour mark as he came in. Oh, little problem. Didn't have the front right wheel on there on the number 10 car. That's the Nielsen Racing of Rob Hodes who brought it in. Yeah,
Hodes to hand over to Garrett Grist. There's something weird going on with these pit stops for 1 or 2 teams, because the race leading car that was leading before the pit stop just done a 2 minutes 20 second stop when the quick teams are doing 1 minute 50s. So they've lost the best part of 20 seconds there. Having built it up during the race, they might have just kissed goodbye to that whole lead in maybe a pit stop hiccup. Jean Glorieux is going to be the telltale one, because the number 3 car is the championship leader, along with his teammate Laurence Heur. What sort of time are they going to do in the pit stop? Late call, it looked like there for the 5 of CD Sport as well.
Who was the leader on the road at that point with DKI Engineering already in the pits. He won't be scored as such,
no,
but effectively he was leading the race by about 5 seconds from Edouard Coop, who now goes through in the 37. The Cool Racing number 37. So that's been a decent run for Edouard, but that 2:20, so that was a good outlap. The only sorry, forget what I was going to say. I wondered if where they were in the pit lane might have affected, that would have affected their in and out lap. It wouldn't have affected the amount of time they were in the pits.
So have DKR come out? Yes, they have, and they've done 1:58. So that's a huge amount of time clawed back by DKR Engineering. You're talking 22 seconds that Cool Racing have lost out then in their pit stop halfway through this race. Just a minute and change to go, and we were exactly at half point. Let's get this, though, this update from Nicola Molini, our former race leader, now chatting with Hayley Edmonds in the pit lane.
I'm here in the Cool Racing garage with Nicola Molini, driver of car number 37 for Cool Racing. What a fantastic first stint for you. You led the majority of the way. How was it for you?
The goal was to manage a good and clear start and go away. After that, I tried to push as much as I can. The car was great until 40-45 minutes. At the end, a little bit more difficult with the traffic, but I did a good gap and was okay, good stint.
Nicola, can you just give a bit of an idea about the conditions out there? Because obviously the extreme temperatures are not expected here at Spa. Can you tell us what it's like from a driver's point of view, please?
Yeah, normally in Spa we don't have this kind of weather. Normally it's raining here, but yeah, quite hot in the car. But the track is clean, the grip is okay, so nice condition.
And just tell us about the pit stops as well. Why are they taking so much time?
Yeah, it was not bad, but at the end there is a lot of car in the same place. And for the mechanics, I think it was difficult to manage the car to put it on the right place, but they managed well, and I hope Edouard can have a good stint, and the goal is to finish on the podium, clearly.
Thank you very much, Nicola.
Okay, so just to repeat, if you struggled to hear there, because Nicola Molini was shouting, be assured of that, but obviously from behind the Cool Racing mask, it was tricky to pick up all the words there. Thank you to Hayley for the question. Obviously, where the cars were positioned in the pit lane, it was tricky to get them in the right place for then to release them on time. And as I say, you're looking at a 2:20 pit stop for Nicola's car, the 37, compared to those chasing who have done 1:57, 1:58 stops, which are much closer to the minimum reference time. And as I say, he spends the whole of his stint building a 20-second lead, 25-second lead, and they might have kissed that whole thing goodbye in one single pit stop. Let's see how it develops. 8.8 seconds is the gap between Edouard Cohope and Matthias Kaiser, who has taken over the 26 car now, by the way, who is the Liechtensteiner and shares the car with Rory Penttinen. So new drivers. Cohope in the 37 leads it. 26 Graf now being driven by Matthias Kaiser. Third position is the number 3 DKR Engineering car of Laurent Heur, that car formerly driven by Jean Glorieux. Fourth place car is now the number 7 of Nielsen Racing. Colin Noble taking that car over from Tony Wells, and it's 23 in 5th place. This is one to watch. Wayne Boyd taking charge of the United Autosports car from John Showerman. And there's still the opportunity, by the way, for some pit stops to take place, because the GT3 leaders that had got as high up as 8th and 9th overall, Rino Mastronardi and Michel Broniszewski, are now pitting on what is their 25th lap. So Mastronardi to hand over to Giacomo Piccini, and Michel Broniszewski will be handing over to David Perel of South Africa. And Perel's already been in the wars this weekend, having to have a rear wing replaced on his ELMS car earlier on today, when those ELMS cars qualified for their race tomorrow. So, yeah, something strange happening with one or two of those pit stops. A number of teams well over 2 minutes, and it could literally have been that obviously this pit lane can accommodate 40 cars, because we've got that many in ELMS tomorrow. But the fact that they're all running in a satellite fashion, parked in front of the ELMS teams, there's not quite the required working area, particularly if you've got two cars in your team and they are parked literally next door to one another. So did one Cool Racing car swerve in last minute across the nose of the other, and then they struggled to get the first one out? I didn't see the pit stop by the naked eye, but I think that's what Nicola Molini was suggesting. John Hartshorn's Ferrari, number 50, lowered back onto its wheels. This will be taken over by Ollie Hancock, by the way, and that carries quite a little bit of damage, John.
Surprisingly little damage given that that car's been in a bit of the wars. Had 2 hits.
Well, the Schiavone one was 74, so
yes,
it wasn't a 50
was.
car, but you're right about the chicane incident.
Yeah, that's where that ding is on the right rear.
Yeah, where Daniel Schneider made contact, going for a gap that was sort of there, but then kind of wasn't when he got to the apex. And that incident being reviewed. Now, Wayne Boyd, for me, is the guy to be keeping an eye out for. He's got a minute to find on the race leader, but he's already faster than everybody that is ahead of him on the road. 2:15.3 last time around, and the cars ahead are doing 2:16s, 2:17s. The race leader's doing 2:19. So it's drive as fast as you can, Wayne, for the next hour.
In some ways, though, don't you want to say it? Don't try and do it all now. You know, you really don't want to have it all done straight away.
As proved, I suppose, by the first half an hour, 15 minutes or so. Camera's not required or not wanted down at...
that was Michelle Gatting, wasn't it?
Yes.
And her car is still sitting in the pit lane. She is out of it.
From Iron Lynx, yeah.
This is the number 9 Ferrari we're talking about.
Got the car up to second position and was pursuing teammate Rino Mastronardi. Rino has been and got out of the car, handed to Giacomo Piccini. Giacomo remains the GT3 leader.
The significant thing was that the hand that was over the camera that was that of Deborah Meyer, who should be in the car if it was going to leave. And therefore that car's not going anywhere. And as I check the timing screen, it's dropped laps now. So clearly there's a problem down at Iron Lynx. It's really not been their day so far, with Schiavone's car out before it got to the grid after contact on the Kemmel Straight. The number 74 Kessel racing car of Mike Broniszewski, and Deborah not able to take that car out the pits. And clearly, although Michelle's been out for probably 10 minutes out of that car now, maybe even a little bit more, she still was pretty upset about what had happened, and she'd put a lot of effort into what had happened earlier on.
So an awful lot happening over the first hour and 5 minutes of this race. The start was clean, although prior to the start, definitely not. Ouch for Claudio Schiavone after weaving. He caught the side of Michel Broniszewski, who decided to overtake on the Kemmel Straight. They weren't racing by this point. They weren't even on their formation lap. That was on the route to the dummy grid. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. Then we did get to the start, which was much, much cleaner, I'm pleased to say. And there was a wonderful start for Jean Gloria, who slotted between the two cars on the second row to bang himself second position. And there was a wayward number 10 car from Nielsen Racing, who we think we worked out was Rob Hodes, losing a touch of time, but wouldn't be penalised for that. Ooh, touching the grass as some of those cars reached the Kemmel Straight in the early stages. Now, Michelle Gatting, as we pointed out at the time, was the only silver-rated driver to be put in the GT3 category. All the others were bronzes, and that meant she wasted no time at all, moving from 6th place up to 2nd in class. It does appear that this pink and black Ferrari is now a retirement. It's still sitting in the pit lane. Michelle's done her stint. Deborah Meyer can't take over, though, presumably because of a gremlin that is proving rather troublesome to locate and to fix. There were then one or two hairy moments around John Hartshorn, who was looking to be lapped by Jean Gloria, who took to the scenery and then went the right side of that Ferrari to duck underneath at the bus stop chicane. Then heading into the chicane, a move from Daniel Schneider, which sadly didn't quite come off, resulted in a spin for the United Autosports LMP3 car, also a spin in the same incident for John Hartshorn. Oh, and that's the problem for Schneider. Massive failure on the rear left corner on the suspension after contact with John's Ferrari. John did get back into the pits. He replaced that punctured tyre and continues to run in 4th position. There are 52 minutes of this race still to go, and a good time, therefore, to run you through the current standings. 28 laps currently completed. Edouard Carope, who took over from Nicola Molini in the number 37 car, now having to build a lead again. His teammate had got it up to 25 seconds. It's dropped back to 11 because of their very slow pit stop. 2 minutes 20 they took in the pit lane. And the chasing Matthias Kaiser for Graf, Laurence Hoare for DK Engineering and Colin Noble for Nielsen Racing are a much bigger threat than they were before the pit stops. The 23 car of United Autosports, Wayne Boyd, is pushing on. He's just set the fastest lap of the race, indeed, a 2:14.949. He's 5th, ahead of Dino Lunardi for Motorsport 98. The racing experience car of David Hauser and Matt Bell. GT3 is led by Giacomo Piccini in the number 8 Iron Lynx Ferrari. That car's been taken over from Rino Mastronardi. Second in GT3 is the 74 of David Perel, who is Michael Broniszewski's teammate. And then it's the 67 car completing the early order in the top 3. Paolo Roberti, another gold-graded driver, taking over from Murad Sultanov. But to complete the remaining GT3 cars that are still in the race, well, it's actually just John Hartshorn's car. Still John labelled as driving that car, interestingly, when it should really have switched to Ollie Hancock. So whether that's a driver ID issue, I don't know. John's definitely been in for his pit stop because we saw it. And he's done a stop of the required amount of time. Yeah, 2 minutes 3 seconds is well over the 1:55 that you have to do. You have to be equal or greater than. So I don't know why John's still labelled in that car, but it might be just a timing glitch. Michelle Gatting appears to be out of the race along with her teammate Deborah Meyer, and Daniel Schneider's United Autosports prototype. Huge suspension failure on the rear left corner after contact at the bus stop chicane.
And that car is parked out of harm's way. The United number 24 is the car I'm talking about. Out of harm's way at the straight on at Les Combes, if that makes sense. If you were heading out onto the old circuit and down towards that wonderful falling right-hander that stretches for about a quarter, nearly a half a mile at Bernaville, that's where that car is. Not at Bernaville, just still in the track, of course. Not quite that far. New fastest lap in GT3 for Giacomo Piccini, who has just put a 2:20.972 in, which I think is a new fastest lap in his class. Yes, it is. Tad under 180 km/h average. A moment or two ago, we had a bit of action down at the bus stop.
Fabien Laverne now in the 27, having taken over from Christophe Cresp, and also involved the 66 Rinaldi Racing entered car, and that's now Dominic Schweger replacing Steve Parrow, who did the opening phase of the race. So those that are still running have correctly put in their second drivers, apart from the 50 Ferrari, and there are question marks about John Hartshorn, as I say. If that is proved to be just a driver ID issue, then they'll obviously have to prove that second driver is in the car somehow, and there may be some radio messages back and forth between race control and the team in order to solve that. 1 or 2 blue times appearing, though, in the last lap column, which suggests a personal best for car rather than driver. So that's Matthias Kaiser going faster than any of Rory Pentinen's laps. Also noticed that the second-placed Ferrari, number 74 from Kessel Racing, is being told that it must respect the track limits, mainly at turn 4. That'll be David Perel being told to neaten up his lines. Probably that's Radion corner. La Source turn 1, turn 2, 3 and 4, Eau Rouge and the run over Radion. A little over 45 minutes to go, and Wayne Boyd 22.8 seconds to find on Colin Noble. I think the concertina effect is basically going to come from third or maybe even second place on Edouard Carope, although Carope's speed is good right now, 2:16.4, much more like it. There is definitely a balancing act between how hard you push with a heavy car and new tyres compared to the speed that you offer later on in the stint when the car is much more manoeuvrable and the tyre wear becomes less of an issue. But there were one or two that certainly burned through their early grip, maybe more readily than expected, including Jean Gloria, who had a couple of laps that were a right old handful, could barely get through Bruxelles and Speaker's Corner neatly and tidily. And then he seemed to weather that storm and get some more speed later on. That might be within the Michelin tyre construct. They are designed to ask questions in the middle portion when the car's still pretty heavy with fuel. And then they really do start to pick up the speed later on in the piece. Tom Cloet's car, number 21, is now being driven by Moritz Krantz. He qualified it earlier on today as well at about lunchtime. Qualifying for Michelin Le Mans Cup split into two separate 15-minute sessions. First for the GTs and then the LMP3s. And it has to be a bronze driver taking part in that machine, in that part of the day rather. Momentarily distracted by the headlight lens of these new cars, because it looked like it was almost starting to break free, but that's part of the design. The left side is the same as the right, thankfully, on the number 21, which is a Duquesne M30. That's less of an effect on the Ligier. And these cars, obviously built to similar regulations, but are enough different to tell them apart from distance. We may have other chassis as well creeping in, perhaps at the road to Le Mans.
Sorry, I still
you do that every time a car goes through a route.
It is breathtaking. The first car on my first trip here to Spa, the first car that I saw up through the bottom of Eau Rouge and up over Radion was it was a classic race supporting the Forerunning Series 2 European Le Mans Series, funny enough, and it was a McLaren M8, and Paul Tarsi and I were sitting driver's left at the Freed shack there with a Freed, and there may have been a beverage involved as well.
Really?
And that was the first thing that I saw going up there. It made a profound impression on me, and that low-down camera that we have here this weekend, right on the apex of Eau Rouge, the first part of Eau Rouge, that sees the cars change direction and head up the hill, is absolutely outstanding. Outstanding. At the front of the field, it looks like Edouard Hub is... Was that David Hauser he was catching up to put a lap onto? No, it was Maury Krantz, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite possibly, yeah. In the 21, yes, it was, with the questionable headlight lenses that I thought were falling out.
I was just trying to work out how far up the field he was coming in terms of the lappery. Wayne Boyd making his way through the field down to 59 seconds. So that's 14 seconds that he's taken out since you mentioned. I think Wayne Boyd might be coming up the field.
Yeah, and he's starting to just increase the speed of those ahead of him, unsurprisingly. So Colin Noble starting to feel the heat down the back of the collar, and likewise Laurence Roux, who's just done the fastest first sector than anybody else. So an absolute best first sector will represent a good lap time when he's finished this. And Laurence Roux now only 5 seconds behind Matthias Kaiser. So things are concertinaing nicely at the sharp end of the field. And this vice-like grip being created by Wayne Boyd in 5th and the car that leads the race. And there's some meeting in the middle to take place there between Boyd and Edouard Carope. Now, the car in the pit lane has to be Michel Gatting's Iron Lynx Ferrari. So does that mean Deborah Meyer is now on board? I can't see a driver in there.
It's taking them a long time to get...
It's just parked up, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nobody in the car.
No, there isn't.
No. I caught a quick flash of something that looked like a helmet. It was part
of
the roll cage inside. It looks like the rear bodywork might not be absolutely square, but other than that, the car looks pretty pristine, as they tend to be from Iron Lynx. And
Stopped in the 83 garage, by the way. You might think 9, 83, they're not the same number, but the 83 is the Iron Lynx car for the European Le Mans series, so it's 83 that's in the garage, and they're parked out front in a satellite-type way. Now, the pit stop for car 66 is under investigation, which is the Rinaldi Racing entered car, the Duqueine of Dominic Schweger and Steve Parrow, who started that car. And under investigation, I don't think for the time that it took, but perhaps for the number of personnel that went over the white line. Maybe there was a stray wheel in that, could have been a stray air line as well. There's all manner of reasons why that pit stop might be under investigation, but often with pit stop infringements, there's often no smoke without fire. So
157 I've got it in the pit lane.
yeah, and I'm looking at the 26 Graf car, which has also done a 157, and so far no message about that car, so I don't think it is a time problem. More to follow on that, I'm sure, as we now head to the team Iron Lynx to get a word with the former race leader.
I'm joined here by Rino Mastronardi, driver of car number 8 for Team Iron Lynx. Rino, you've been showing some fantastic pace. Can you hear me? Just going to put this over here. Fantastic. You've been showing some fantastic pace out there. You've obviously got your second pole of the season. You followed that up. You're in the lead, and you just handed over to Giacomo. How did it go out there for you?
Everything is going well so far. It's all just perfect. I mean, the pole position, and we are leading the race. We won Paul Ricard, so everything is running very well. I'm just a little bit worried right now because the car just 5 laps to the end of the stint had some problem with the gearbox. So I'm keeping my finger crossed and hope that we can make it to the end. But so far everything is good.
Okay, and do you think, you obviously think it's going to make it to the end, the gearbox? You think that it's got the capacity?
Yeah, I think it's just an electric problem or something like that. We had to make a power box reset while I was driving. Giacomo, I heard by radio, he did the same. So far it's still running, so hopefully he can make it to the end. So
cross fingers, absolutely. Yes. Can you just tell us about the conditions out there, how hard it was for you in these extreme, in the heat?
It was very, very hot. Car was quick, but a little bit difficult to drive. But anyway, it's never easy in this sport, so you have to manage what you have under your butt. So anyway, what's important is to be in the lead. It's very where we are, so it's fine so far.
Thank you very much, Rino.
Thank you.
Rino Mastronardi, Iron Lynx, and now he takes, or rather Giacomo Piccini takes over from Rino, but like I say, the race pace and the position they are in currently in this event owes an awful lot to the guy we've just heard from, because Giacomo Piccini's speed, never in any doubt, he's gold graded, and you just put him into the Ferrari and it automatically goes fast. But it's about what Giacomo's doing out of the car in honing Rino's talents and focusing, where he needs to improve on certain parts of this track. That's the beauty of Spa-Francorchamps. You've got almost every single corner known to man here. And if you can go quick here, then you can generally go quick everywhere. I'm sure Rino's looking forward to some of the other big meetings later on in the Michelin Le Mans Cup season, including 2 events at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is its own entity these days, the Road to Le Mans event, two further rounds of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and then on to Monza and to Portimao to end their season. But interesting, gearbox problems perhaps for car 8. Does that offer us an explanation as to what Michel Gatting's Ferrari was going through? It hasn't rejoined, looking suspiciously like an official retirement now, and Deborah Meyer sadly not going to get a drive after she performed well at Le Castellet 3 weeks ago. Maybe, well, you have to think an electronic related problem for that Ferrari, because it looks so straight. Sitting in the pit lane outside the Iron Lynx garage. Big wiggle again from the DKR Engineering Laurence Heur car. That's the best of the Duqueine M30s, and Laurence Heur has just done the fastest sector 1 time of anybody else on the previous lap, so he really enjoys this first sector up the hill to the end of the Kemmel Straight. Can't quite better it on this lap, but he has got himself 2nd position. So Matthias Kaiser's there in the 26. The number 3 car, though, swoops up the inside and nets himself the 2nd place after great driving. And now can Laurence Heur start to whittle away at a 21-second lead that Edward Cohope is trying to nurse. It's been 20-odd seconds ever since Nicola Molini bailed out at half distance. Molini over to Cohope, and Cohope now showing a similar speed. But the problem for him is that Laurence Rohr is well and truly revved up. Colin Noble's in 4th and really hammering down the road in his Duquesne, and the same can be said for Wayne Boyd in 5th position as well. Dino Lenardi from Motorsport 98 is in 6th place, ahead of David Hauser and Matt Bell. And we got Garrett Grist and Fabien Laverne completing the top 10. In GT3, Giacomo Piccini taking over from the guy we've just heard from, Rino Mastronardi, running in the lead from David Pirel. Then Paolo Roberti, Ollie Hancock. And Hancock now confirmed, by the way, as being in the John Hartshorn car, so that obviously was a driver ID issue. Switch flicked to the wrong setting, and Oliver Hancock now displayed as the 3rd of the Kessel Racing Ferraris. Kessel running 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Just the elusive 1st place that they dearly want to score, but it's a little way away from them just now, 11 seconds to be exact. Down towards Eau Rouge goes the Grey Market Racing Alex Mortimer car with Geoffrey Donada in pursuit. And Nick Adcock running in 15th place. What about the middle order then? Because if anything, the gap between Wayne Boyd and Dino Lenardi's opening up a touch. Wayne is still quicker by 0.6 of a second. He's also quicker than Colin Noble. Here comes the battle for the number 3, and who's that on his outside then? That's not Kaiser on the fight.
No, that's the 20
it's
car.
Grey Market car.
It's Alex
So
Mortimer.
it's been a lappery going on.
And that's all coming from a better run up the hill. And we've got the drive-through penalty for the 66. Rinaldi Racing, Dominic Schweger. Well, that was the Steve Parrow car, still flashing its indicator as well on the right-hand side, but that's not what it's being pulled for. A little bit of a lock-up as well as he dives down the hill. Just through Campus there, and heading through Stavelot of Paul Frere. No spectators here, but a happy band of small select band of journalists and photographers with a little bit of cover over the sun and a rather dark cloud settling in over the front straight at the moment. Into the pit lane immediately with 35 minutes to go for the drive-through. Well, let's see what this pit stop is, JP, then we'll get a nice delta for the pit lane for later on in the weekend.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't have to stop. He'll go straight through on the pit lane speed limiter.
60 kilometres per hour and 23-24 seconds I'm going to go for, because I don't think the pit lane length has changed year on year, and drive-throughs were taking roughly 23 and a bit seconds in 2019. Got more information on why Michelle Gatting had to start the number 9 car, by the way. That's because Deborah Meyer wasn't within the 110% qualifying ruling. So she qualified earlier on today but wasn't quick enough. So the official said that her teammate must start the car. That's the reason why the silver-rated driver was put in first. Not from a strategic point of view, as I had at first thought. And it's 23 seconds for a drive-through. So there you go, it's exactly the same as last year. Dominic Schweger rejoining. And I maintain the fact that that wasn't to do with the length of pit stop that the 66 did, because you got 26 doing exactly the same time, and they haven't been pinged for anything. So I think it was more about something that was done in the pit stop act, i.e. more than required personnel over the white line to change tyres and help out with the driver change. It could have been a wheel that started rolling down, uncontrolled into the fast lane of the pit lane. It might have been a straight airline. It could have been all sorts of other things. I don't know, but obviously that's been observed by a judge of fact in the pit lane, and the drive-through is their penalty. So 2 pit stops now displayed alongside car 66. Everybody else, though, has one, apart from John Hartshorn, who, of course, had to make that stop after he was had some contact with Daniel Schneider at the bus stop chicane. forcing him in to change a puncture straight away. Sadly for Schneider, he was too far along the track to take to the pit lane, and to be honest, they wouldn't have been able to fix that anyway within the race because there was so much damage to the rear suspension on car 24. Cool Racing, Edouard Coho still leads. He's on lap 37. Another team manager being summoned to race control is the commander of car 9. OK, that's the car sitting in the pit lane.
Well, they can't put it in the garage because it's not their garage.
No, that is
so
true.
the only place it can sit is there.
Yeah.
But clearly there's something going on.
Well, as I say, I've realised the reason why Michel Gatting had to start that
good.
car, but,
good.
Otherwise that doesn't tell us why it can't continue.
Good detective work there, JP.
I was actually looking for the bulletin regarding car 66 to know exactly what they'd done wrong in the pit stop, but that's not issued. Well, it's not been issued into the public domain just yet. I'll keep my eyes peeled. Arriving at Eau Rouge is La Source, and Eau Rouge in a moment is Laurence Heur. Second in the race, 24 seconds adrift of the race leader. Matthias Kaiser is only 3 and a bit seconds off the back of her, though, but that gap is opening up after a great overtake from Laurence Heur in the Luxembourgish Outfits car, DKR Engineering. Colin Noble still lapping well, although Wayne Boyd's a second faster last time around.
But 55 seconds still behind the leader with just on 32 minutes to go, or if you prefer, round about 14 laps. All of a sudden, our 2-hour race has come down to 14 laps to go for Cool Racing Edouard Coupe and the rest of the competitors out on the track here at Spa. Live from the Ardennes in the sunshine at the moment. But still plenty of blue skies around and temperatures very warm indeed. Still 34 degrees Celsius on the track, 32.5 in the air. So that's the first time when I've been watching that the track temperature has got above the air temperature. And that actually has dropped down significantly, 2 or 3 degrees the air temperature in the last 45 minutes or so, with the extra bits of cloud cover that have come over.
Edouard Coho in the blue, black and red of Cool Racing, the Swiss flag emblazoned on the rear wing end plates as well. It heads across the line, having just dived up the inside of Ollie Hancock in the number 50 Ferrari. And you feel for Ollie Hancock because, of course, the last time he drove that car, it would have been very straight indeed, straight from being prepared for a qualifying session. A moment or two ago, what happened here for the class leader in GT3, very wide indeed at the top of the hill at Raidillon, and thankfully there is all that runoff, but you can't do that too many times in the race.
And in fact was pulled for track limits at the top of the hill at turn 4.
Yeah.
Dominic Schwager then into the pit lane in the number 66 car, having had his drive-through and stopping for an extra splash of fuel.
This is the additional.
JP.
Okay, right. Well, these engines in the LMP3s are brand new, predominantly. There's 2 ways of doing it, but for the main part, the field has the new 5.6-litre Orica-prepared Nissan engine, and this is the engine that is too thirsty. It was discovered at Le Castellet, that a brand new design for 2020. I mean, these engines were on the brink anyway.
I thought it was the other way around.
No, it's the new engine which can't do the distance.
I thought it was the old one with the bigger restrictor to give them more. It will give them more power.
Yeah, but they reckon that the old engine with the restrictor is actually fine, but what you can't do is give the advantage to the older engine. Everyone's got to be level across the playing field. But yeah, I mean, that's, if anything, more embarrassing for Orica. They've had the winter time and extended COVID-19 to come out with this engine and now work out that the extra power makes it too thirsty, and therefore they can't guarantee that these race cars will make it to the finish on one stop. So the advice, therefore, now from the ACO, who are putting a huge amount of pressure on Orica to sort this problem out, said it must be sorted by Spa-Francorchamps. We're now at this weekend, and the problem is still manifest. So they're being told to try and rectify it for the next round and ASAP, effectively. But anyway, the situation that we're in at the moment is that an extra 40-second stop must therefore be performed to ensure that these cars get to the finish and well within the envelope of the engine's capability.
So it's a splash and dash, basically. They've added a splash and dash.
And you can't do anything else during the stop. You can't change tyres, you can't change driver. It's in and out again. And it literally is a splash, you know, in order to get that extra literage in to make sure the car gets to the finish. And it's 2 hours on the clock, but of course you don't know when that 2 hours is up where the leader's going to be. Have they just literally crossed the finish line? And will they have to do another 7 kilometres? So that's always an extra insurance factor you've got to weave in. So, yeah, the number 5 car was serving that stop. Also in to do the extra stop was the 66, Dominic Schwager. So now 3 stops for that car. The long stop, the short stop, and a drive-through. And by the look of the times, it may well be 40 seconds stationary, actually, because those 2 teams did 1 minute 20s. So, yeah, I think it's a period of time when you're actually in the box and not able to be waved back into the race, because 1 minute and 20 for the 66 car, 1 minute and 18 for the number 5 CD Sport car, Nick Adcock. Heading through the right-hander of Paul Frère, and up towards Blanchimont goes the number 10 car of Garrett Grist. He races for Nielsen and is trying to condense the 9 seconds that he's got between he and Matt Bell. They are both former United Autosports teammates, ploughing very different furrows this year, with Matt Bell being signed by Cool Racing, Garrett Grist by Nielsen Racing. And Fabien Leverne for MV2S in the number 27 car is running in 10th position. Still, though, very solid performance from Edward Cohope at the head of the order. He is silver rated, so shouldn't be lacking in any speed, and he's solidly in the mid 216s, low 217s, making sure that he's staying out front by 20-odd seconds from Laurence Rohr, who certainly is no slow coach at all, and should be able to find the chinks in Cohope's armour, if there are any. But at the moment, nothing forthcoming. Matthias Kaiser in 3rd position, the Liechtensteiner, running for Graf, could be about to come under pressure from Colin Noble, who is only 5.7 seconds behind here. Wayne Boyd, has his effort faded a little bit? No, it's still a second faster last time than Colin Noble. And the gap's 53 seconds now. It was well over a minute when he first took over that car for United. Heading out of Speaker's Corner, turn number 9, and now into the double left-hander at Pouhon is Garrett Grist. And we very nearly got a perfect pattern of Ligier-Duquesne, Ligier-Duquesne. Sadly, we've then got 2 Ligiers together on the screen, but it is alternating otherwise back and forth between the 2 models, which shows that the balance of performance is pretty much bang on.
Yeah, but then we've got 2 Duquesnes later on, so we've almost got a mirror image though, haven't we?
True enough.
It's not too bad. I'll take that.
But the Ligier does seem to be very strong in the middle sector, which is the really fast stuff here at Spa-Francorchamps, and I think that is amplified then across the whole of the lap, because if you could do well in the middle sector, your lap's very impressive indeed. And that's where a chunk of that time has been found by, first of all, Nicola Molini, and now Edward Cohope in the Cool Racing number 37. So they took a first ever pole in Michelin Le Mans Cup history earlier on today. I wonder whether that can be backed up with a victory as well. Sun still beating down here at Spa-Francorchamps, making the ambient temperature very warm indeed. Track temperature is going to take a long time to tail off. It'll still be well above 30 degrees.
34 at the minute on the track, yeah. 32 in the air. Beautiful late afternoon. Started a wee bit late, so we'll finish a wee bit late as well, coming up to 5:45. 15 minutes before 6 in the evening Central European Summer Time. And with the battle for 7th and 8th between David Hauser and Matt Bell continuing as they drop down the hill. Beautiful long right-handed corner. Starting the drop down the hill. It drops. This is much, much steeper on the downhill than you think as well. We were talking about going uphill. You know, Eau Rouge always looks, Eau Rouge into Radion looks spectacular. Then there's steady drag up to the top along the Camel Straight to Le Combe. But from there on, as soon as you come out the second part of Le Combe, actually the third part of Le Combe, the right-hander, you go over a brow and the world falls away. Yeah. From there, all the way, still going downhill, all the way till the bottom of what was the old Stavelot. And then there's a slight bottoming out and a little bit of a rise up to Blanchimont.
It always surprises me as well as you come out of Bruxelles, that 180-degree right-hander. Right ahead of you is a cliff face, and it's easy to forget that 2 seconds ago you were at the top of that at Le Combe, and then it's the tumble down again, and the track doubles back on itself, and you're staring up at the track you've just done.
And if you could stop just as you're turning in and look straight before you finish Bruxelles, then you would see all the way down the valley to the pits, and that's when you realise how much lower down you've still got to go.
Yes.
And it's an extraordinary thing.
Yeah, turning left actually at turn 9, you get a glimpse of the start-finish straight, just a very narrow slither, and you think, God, I've still got half the circuit to go, and yeah, as you say, a lot of real estate to drop down, plummet all the way towards Campus Corner, and then the gentle climb back up through Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane. It's an epic circuit, and very easy to forget the amount of history that's happened here, but also I think, you know, you can become, the novelty can sometimes wear off on one of these circuits, and then you suddenly think, what? No, I can't even perish that thought, because this place is just incredible. And the tree-lined Kemmel Straight starting to just develop some longer shadows now. Still the battle rages on between David Hauser and Matt Bell, who is pursuant in the 69 car. This is the car that was delayed in the pit stop, remember. I think it was Matt who was struggling to get the car started. Starter motor clicking away and not fully engaging. So it ended up being a 2 minutes 49 seconds stop, which was very costly indeed. The other side of the garage, though, pleased so far at Cool Racing, because Edward Cohope able to cope with the pressure of Laurence Heur. He's actually extending the gap to nearly 27 seconds.
Just a note from race control, the pit stop for the CD Sport number 5, Nick Adcock in that car at the moment. Hello to Nick and to Sophia, his wife, excuse me. Not a time issue there, JP. With 2 minutes and 18 and 1 minute and 19 spent in the pits.
Yeah, the 2 minutes 18 is fine. The 40 seconds, I was going by Paul Ricard's standards, and I thought it was 40 seconds stationary. What I haven't been given is the time from pit in to pit out. So I'm then looking at another car that's done its splash and dash, which is the 66, and it's done a minute and 20. So I don't know. Again, I'll search around for the exact proposed infringement there on the bulletin board. But some of those bulletins don't actually appear to the end of the race. Nevertheless, something that the judge of fact has spotted. Laurence Heur's just done the absolute best time through Sector 1. Matthias Kaiser, a personal best through Sector 1. Colin Noble and Wayne Boyd wasting no time in 4th and 5th places. And into the pit lane for the second time comes Matt Bell. This is for the splash and dash, almost side by side into Lefagna corner, and forced up the curb is the number 7 machine of Colin Noble. So that's Noble battling with Matthias Kaiser. And has he got through yet? No, not quite. So 26 still just about ahead of Colin Noble, but Noble went for the gap between the GT3 and the 26 car of Graf. Didn't quite come off. Very nearly contact at Lefagna.
Yeah, it was brave by Colin, but, you know, we've come to expect that down through the years. What he did do was get into position very, very early, showed the front end of the car to the driver ahead. Now, Graf car going to the right-hand side. Does that mean he's peeling off in the pit lane? No, it doesn't. And round the outside into the first part of the bus stop, and then the block pass going through for the Nielsen Racing car. That's third position. That's Colin Noble at his very best.
Yeah, superb. He's an Asian Le Mans champion from 2019, 2020 in LMP3s. And the 24-year-old from Edinburgh is really on form this weekend. Will be racing in the European Le Mans Series tomorrow as well. And Noble round the outside of the chicane to bag third position. Now he's got 11 seconds to try and reel in Laurence Heur, but that'll be a bigger challenge. And for Matthias Kaiser, the problem here is that he may well fall back into the clutches of Wayne Boyd, who is, 11.5 seconds further back down the road in fifth. But I just fancy that Wayne Boyd could close that gap in the next 10 to 15 minutes. There are just under 18 minutes to go, plus the completion of the lap that the leader is on at that point, so that might be an extra few seconds. It might be another 2 minutes plus to get these cars to the finish. Something else that all these teams have had to factor in terms of their fuel mileage, and that is very much a moot point regarding the LMP3s running the new Nissan engine. So to make sure that these P3s get to the finish, everyone's got to do an extra short stop, a splash and dash, and the latest of those cars is the Racing Experience machine of David Hauser. It was his brother Gary racing at Le Castellet last time out, but David's turn this weekend. I think Gary will be getting back in again then for the next meeting, which is also coincidentally at Circuit Paul Ricard, replacing the Barcelona round.
So that's the number 11 car, and again, there was no rush there.
No.
Because there is plenty of time to get the fuel into that Racing Experience car in the time that they need to be in the pit lane. Now, a bit of a battle starting to come together at the sharp end of the GT3 field, Johnny.
Yes, it is starting to condense nicely, isn't it? 1.2 seconds now between Giacomo Puccini and David Perel, and these are two teams that maybe get on with each other even less than they did at the start of the weekend because of that fracas between Claudio Schiavoni and Michel Broniszewski. Iron Lynx up against Kessel Racing, both outfits running 3 Ferrari 488s in GT3. We had 1 or 2 other cars in GT3 at Le Castellet. There was the Mercedes, don't forget, and Porsche as well. It's all Ferraris for GT3 for this outing, though. Ooh. Very, very wide indeed for David Perel there.
That was at the downhill no-name corner after Bruxelles, and that is a scary moment because there's barely a car's width there, and by the time you've realised you're in that situation, there's very little you can do about it. And David Perel actually did a cracking job of getting that car back onto the track without hitting the grass. If he'd hit the grass there, he was in big trouble, because in that moment you're in the lap of the racing goats. He's already had a warning for track limits for that. I don't think he'll want to do this again. Turned in a tad too early, and that's just spat him out. But he got it back on the track. That was very cool. No panic, no jumping on the brakes, no trying to turn the wheel. He tried to turn the wheel and pinch that car. Could have easily lost the rear end there, particularly when he was off the track on the dirty part of the runoff. So pretty cool driving from the second place man. It's dropped him a little bit, but actually not that much. And now with the traffic coming through, he might be able to latch on to, well, one of the P3s, the 37 car, the race leader, has peeled off into the pit. So now, if he can get in behind, I think that was the CD Sport number 6 car, Geoffrey Denarder, that was going through them. But this should be the final racing pit stop for Edouard Coop,
Yes, it will be. This is the splash to ensure that the car can do the distance, and I'm seeing quicker times than actually the one we were concerned about for CD Sport, so I'm sure that's fine. CD Sport, questionable pit stop infringement, but I will agree with you now that it's not time related, because if we've had stops that are 1 minute 16, sorry, 1 minute 17, we've had a 1 minute 16 as well for Racing Experience.
In comes the third place car, Colin Noble. So Laurence Heur now leads the motor race, but Ozus with 14 minutes left, a pit stop.
Yeah, and one of the shorter variety pit stop as well. The hose is not going to be on very long at all here, and the fueler has a stopwatch, I think, just on the very top of that pipe, so he can keep a visual and then pluck the nozzle out at the required point. Then the car will be waved back onto track. Careful not to breach what is probably 1 minute and 15 seconds now, because nobody's gone quicker than that. I think the extra stop timed at 1 minute 15, equal or greater than. As long as you don't breach that, you will be fine.
5 minutes before 6, 13 minutes still to go after a delayed start.
Yeah, we should have been finished now, pretty much.
Yeah,
as per the previously released schedule. Because of a bizarre old moment on the Kemmel Straight, which accounted for one of the Ferraris, which was an Iron Lynx car after a clash with a Kessel Racing Ferrari. Claudio Schiavone was out on the spot. We were then down to 2 Iron Lynx cars, make that 1 Iron Lynx car because Michelle Gatting could not continue once she had reached her pit stop. Deborah Meyer didn't even get in the car, and Iron Lynx weren't too happy to have our cameras down in the garage at that point in time either. Things rather heated. I'm sure they'd be happy to explain now exactly what the problem was for the number 9 car. However, we mustn't distract ourselves from the lead battle, which involves an Iron Lynx and a Kessel Racing Ferrari. And both are absolutely desperate to take victory in the GT3 part of the race, with Giacomo Puccini sticking the elbows out as wide as possible to keep David Perel, and sometimes a very wayward David Perel, behind. Perel's already had to have a brand new rear wing put onto his ELMS car today for exploring the scenery a bit too readily. So,
and they stopped on exactly the same lap. They're both on their 20th lap on this fuel load. Their first stints by their co-drivers, Mastronardi and Broniszewski, was 25 laps. So they are going to be about spot on for 25 laps. And again, the 74 running wide at the exit of Le Combe as they dive down to Bruxelles. That's going to get them another warning, and we may be stretching the patience of race control there for the number 74 driver, David Perel.
Quite possibly we're only in this position with the leader's nose to tail, because 5 seconds were gained during those pit stops. David Perel's car did a 2 minute 7 second stop. It was a 2:12 for Giacomo Puccini. So there's 5 seconds right there. And it's now a quarter of a second between the top 2 in GT3. You don't really need a timing screen. It's basically a car length as they reach La Fagna. Loads of curb there taken by Perel, and the right side tyres are going to be filthy after that trip up the curb.
He's touring car every curb now, really riding it. He's right in behind the leader. This is immense concentration for Puccini, who's leading, who's just trying not to look in his mirrors, trying not to see the scary moments that are going on behind him. Meantime, in second place, Kessel Racing's David Perel is trying every trick in the book, and a few that have not yet been written, as he tries to look defensive by the leader into the final part of the lap. Then he'll block to the inside, which he does very nicely indeed. There's a little touch there, just to say, yeah, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing, Giacomo. But this is David here. Dink. Dink. There's another little tap. 2 little taps going through the final chicane. It was close to it, but I don't think there was contact going into La Source. Good getaway from the slow corner by Giacomo Puccini. He's pulled out about a Ferrari's length, but he's holding on to that out over the top. And again, the 74 car in second goes a little bit wider, as into the pits comes the 2 cars that are leading. Lawrence Herr and Matthias Kaiser are in, so let's wait for Edouard Kaup to come round again. This is the extra fuel stop, mandated. That's been done, but they are holding. Might as well give the windscreen a clean at the same time. Here is the car that's led from first drop of the flag, really, coming through to reclaim the lead. Coop going through, back into the lead. And the coming together for Kessel Racing's number 50 and the number 24, Daniel Schneider, has now been looked at, and as I suspected it might be, that fairly hefty thump has been NFA'd. No further action, but it has been looked at. That was some hour and a bit ago. Out of the chicane onto the start-finish straight, JP, for the number 66, getting a bit of a flash of the lights, Dominic Schwager for Rinaldi Racing, as in behind he has the 4th place car of Colin Noble. He's made his final stop, and Noble now just 38 seconds behind the leader, but really needs to dispose of that lapped car ahead of him. Remember, it was 1 minute and 14 when he took the car over, so he has clawed back the time, but is still not within striking distance, although he is in a position on the podium as it stands at the moment. Blue flags for Dominic Schwager there.
Yeah, some traffic down the Kemmel Straight, or up the Kemmel Straight. Plenty of tyre pickup offline as well, which has flicked off at speed. Whoa, almost backing the white and black Ferrari into La Source was Giacomo Piccini, then fully sideways and having to correct that slide mid-corner. That's a sign that the tyres are rather second-hand as well beneath the Italian, and he's being mightily pressurised by South African driver David Perel in his wheel tracks. So Iron Lynx against Kessel Racing, showing no signs of abating.
Meantime, the battle for 4th in LMP3 continues, with Matthias Kaiser on his outlap with Wayne Boyd right up his rear aerofoil. And fabulous driving by Kaiser, having just come out of the pits, to hold back the other Ligier of Wayne Boyd. So that's a good job from Wayne, and also a very good job indeed by Kaiser. Will have lost a little bit of heat and therefore pressure from his Michelins whilst he was standing still in the pit lane. Oh, and in fact, as I say that, did Kaiser get past? Yes, he did. He was passed. So that's the switch.
Boyd,
so
it? Yeah.
Boyd has made it. Well, right, 3/4 of a lap he held him up. Yeah. Just as we stopped looking at that, of course.
And again, Boyd drifting through Le Fagna corner there, so his tyres not when they first came out of the Michelin factory, certainly, but he's quick, and there's no doubt about it, and he's probably happy as well with the drifting nature of the performance of that car.
So, Iron Lynx leading from 3 Kessel Racing Ferraris, and at the moment, it might not be either of those two that lead over the line, because Piccini and Perel are absolutely hammer and tongs. I think they're the only 2 GT cars on the lead lap, and there it is. There is what we expected. The patience has been exhausted in race control. Black and white flag for Perel in second. This could cost him a shot at the lead. It won't cost him the podium if he has to come through the pit lane, but he's out of lives now, and he's off the track again, very wide indeed there, coming out of the final corner, still with wheels 2 of his Michelin tyres on the curb. He sends it down the inside into La Source hairpin. This time, can he get it stopped? He can, and that's the lead.
Piccini's going to get him on the exit, though, I'm sure. He deliberately went outside-inside trick, and Piccini is no slouch. He's an expert driver. He saw the overtake coming and thought, you're not going to get the drive out of the corner because I've gone deep. And then you can hug the concrete wall and come out down towards Eau Rouge and over Radion, and gets the lead back again. Fabulous racing.
Just couldn't get that car stopped. David Perel in the Kessel Racing Ferrari went for the block pass at La Source, but just didn't scrub off enough speed on the exit. Bizarrely, you want to be as slow as you can in the middle of the corner and make the guy that you've just passed check up so he doesn't get that run. He's abusing his rear Michelin's through Lacombe at the moment. He's off the track again. He's going to get a drive through here, JP. He's really pushing his luck, and the leader goes wide in Bruxelles and then takes a late apex. They're both struggling for grip now. 4 minutes to go. That's at least this one and one more, and depending where the leader is when time expires, it could be another one after that. They've both been out now. This is their 23rd lap. 23rd lap, and they did 25 laps on the first stint of rubber and fuel.
Was there some contact on the exit of La Source? Giacomo Piccini, great driving at the apex of that corner. I just wonder whether he might have been a little bit naughty on the exit, although they often say you are within your rights to run out wide to the natural racing line, and that meant that David Perel had to get out of the throttle and tuck in behind. So he's still there with more pace than the number 8 car, I'm sure. One or two questions being asked here and there. Is the gearbox issue still a problem, by the way, for Giacomo Piccini? Because Rino Mastronardi telling Haley earlier on that the gearbox was playing up. They had to do a reset at the start of the stint. I don't think it is an issue, because it would be more of a problem than it's proving to be. I don't think he would be able to stay out front of David Perel to quite this extent.
Oh, he goes down the inside of the final corner and he's hit him. There was a certain air of inevitability.
What's happening
about
now?
that.
And how far away is the third place car?
They're off the lead lap.
All right, fine.
What he's done is not passed him.
Yeah.
He's basically done a redress, I think, there. That was Perel. He's scored as the leader. It was an opportunist move in the extreme as he went for the gap that was, in fact, it was already closing before he'd gone there. Lightest of contact, but they're loaded up, going through there. And he's Perel's right up on the curb, turns him around, and then stops. I think he was trying to do the redress.
And the way they carried on, Perel is out front. So does he allow the number 8 car back past, or is that now the order to the finish? Giacomo Piccini's going to push like crazy to try and redress the balance, but he's now got 4 fully flat-spotted Michelin tyres after going sideways at the final corner, turn 18. And unsurprisingly, the message from Eduardo Freitas and his team is that the incident involving cars 74 and 8 is under investigation.
I think I might. Oh, it's the last lap. It's the last lap. He can't let him by. He can't let him by. With the big gap that they had, I think if I'd been the team, I would have told David Perel, park that car until Piccini's gone by you, and then have another go.
Yeah.
Last lap for the leaders, not for those 2 cars. There'll be one more for those 2 that we were watching. Perel and Piccini will have to come past us one more time.
And there's now going to be a drive-through penalty for car 74. So
it's only going to drop him to second. It's going to kill his chance of the race win. And I think he could have got away with that if he'd stopped.
Yeah.
I really do. Over exuberant, what the responsible adult would call a low percentage lunge.
Yeah. Well, realising that time was running out, and they are very much 2 separate entities. Remember, Kessel Racing of Switzerland, Iron Lynx of, well, Italian flagged, and as we said, not a great deal of love lost between those 2 outfits. So we knew we were destined for a cracking fight to the finish. It's a real shame it had to end like that. But after the drive-through penalty, that will put the Iron Lynx number 8 car back out front, and Rino Mastronardi, Giacomo Piccini to a 2nd race win of the season.
I don't think there can be any doubt or annoyance from Piccini and the Iron Lynx team. I know they've had a hard day. 2 of their 3 cars out. One didn't even take the start. One out some time ago. And they're looking to, against the Kessel hordes, to try and prevail. Meantime,
race leader, soon-to-be race winner, Edouard Cohope, and Nicola Molini, who did the heavy lifting part of the stint in the early stages, got himself something like a 25-second lead before the pit stops, and I don't think any other team could match them today. Cool Racing of Switzerland take victory. There is Molini, and what it means to Nicola as well. Really well driven, but from both of them. And Molini and Cohope take a first victory of the season. Jean Glorieux and Laurence Reur are going to finish in 2nd position, and they are vaulting themselves up the championship table as well as a result for DKR Engineering. But no doubt about it, the Luxembourgish squad will have a fight on their hands to get another title, having won it already, the Michelin Le Mans Cup in 17, 18 and 19. Across the line in 3rd position, Colin Noble, the car that was started by Tony Wells. They'll be really chuffed at Nielsen Racing to bag themselves a podium and kick off their weekend in style. They'll be back again tomorrow in the European Le Mans Series event. And for GT3 haven't yet seen any of the top 3 Ferraris home yet because they're positioned slightly different places along the track. Remember, the checkered flag is judged by where the overall leader is, so there's still another sector to go yet for David Perel and Giacomo Puccini. Now, Perel's not been in for the drive-through, has he?
I think it was called after he'd gone through. It was very close, so he would have had a chance.
So it'll be added to the race time, probably.
Yeah, I still don't think it's going to affect his overall position because Roberti's number 67 car's already crossed the line.
It has, yes.
And they were a full lap away from the GT3 leaders.
That's right, because Roberti's car can only complete 49 laps, and the top 2 in GT3 are already on to lap 50. So yes, they're going to be a lap clear, and therefore locked into position, almost irrespective of the penalty they get. But they're a minute and a half, minute and 40 seconds ahead, actually. So it should mean that the top 2 on the road are the top 2 in the results, just in the other order, because 74's already crossed the line, but that's immediately corrected by Alcamel now. Giacomo Puccini gets the checkered flag and is scored the winner from David Perel's Kessel Racing Ferrari number 74. And those GT3 cars immediately waved.
So was he given 30
paddock.
seconds, was he? He was given 30 seconds of a penalty, wasn't he?
I think that would fit,
yeah,
to his race time immediately. I mean,
23 seconds is the delta through the pit lane, but of course you lose more than that in lap speed because of the differential between the pit speed and the other speed. It hasn't made a difference. That's how it was going to turn out. So it's of no consequence, really. If you're seeing cars coming the wrong way down the pit lane, panic not. But the good news is we have got the right car to come to the podium celebration for GT3. They have turned them around and sent them wrong way up the pit lane.
Right, 2 winning cars in the pit lane already, so high time we get some reaction with Hayley Edmonds now, who's down with Cool Racing.
I'm joined here by the winner of the LMP3 race, of course, Edouard Kaope. So Edouard from Cool Racing team, what a fantastic race it's been for you. First victory of the season. So how does it feel?
Yeah, after the Castellet, we had to be really good here. And we finished the race with a big win. So it's really cool. My teammate did an amazing job during the first stint. So I just have to manage the gap. And we win. It's super cool.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Edward Cohope, joined by Nicola Molini. Well, we heard from Molini earlier on in the race, of course, who, I don't know, was apprehensive of going too early, saying we've got this in the bag, because they did lose time in the pit stop, no doubt about it, but to come back again and win it by about 24, 25 seconds, which was the margin that Molini had at the pit stop point of the race, then that should not be underestimated. Really good result for Cool Racing, and well and truly deserved. Thirsty work for Giacomo Puccini as well. I'm sure we'll be hearing from him in just a second. Now, the highlights of the race started well before we got going with the race. A horrible incident for Claudia Schiavone after erratic weaving to try and build Michelin tyre temperature. A clash with Michel Broniszewski in the 74 put him in the wall and out already. Then we finally got going properly, and this was a much cleaner start to the race. Great start for Jean Gloria, right through the middle of the 2 cars that were occupying the second row slots, and the Belgian was on to a good one because he would actually hold second place all the way to the pit stop. Laurence Heur resulted in a DKR Engineering podium as well after his stints. There was a grassy moment down the Kemmel Straight, though not advisable on coolish tyres or even on warmish Michelins, as then the battle from Michelle Gatting started to get going from 6th position up to 3rd. She was forced to start the race because of a qualifying glitch for Deborah Meyer earlier on today, well, not being inside the 110% rule. Side by side between Gatting and Michel Broniszewski. This would give Michelle 2nd position and an Iron Lynx 1-2 at the time. She got very close indeed to Rino Mastronardi later on in the stint. John Hartshorn getting almost his ears boxed there by 2 LMP3 cars out of Blanchimont as Jean Gloria went to the right side and then to the left, and then up towards the chicane at the end of the lap. There was a clash between Daniel Schneider and John Hartshorn, resulting in a spin for them both. And there was John spinning around at turn 18. He would be able to go straight into the pits to replace a punctured tyre, but Schneider was out on the spot at the top of the hill at Les Combes. Then this move from Jean Gloria on Rory Penttinen. And actually that, by this point, was Laurence Heur who'd taken charge of the number 3 car. And a great move, a great battle, first of all, between Colin Noble and the 26 car of Matthias Kaiser. Kaiser fending off Noble in this first phase, but then later on in the lap, when they got to the bus stop chicane, Noble able to pull off a great overtake round the outside of turn 17 to bag 3rd position. Also, the Wayne Boyd-driven car slotting up the inside of Matthias Kaiser to get 4th position at Fagnes corner as well. This was pretty close to the end. And then this rather controversial moment to end the GT3 battle. A move from David Perel that really wasn't on Giacomo Piccini. It meant that Piccini's car was spun around on the exit of the chicane. You could tell from the reaction that Iron Lynx weren't best chuffed by that. But it turned out that the Kessel racing car of Perel was given a drive-through penalty. He didn't take that in race, so instead had to soak up a 30-second race time penalty, which reversed the positions. Probably the right thing to do. Cool Racing and Iron Lynx victorious.
Yeah, well-deserved win for Cool Racing. Never put a whale wrong, did they? Let's be honest. That was their race from green to checker. Got to wonder about what might be said to David Perel. It's all very well to say, you know, I've got to go for the gap. That wasn't the time that he had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the time pressure came into the equation. He also then was happy, I think, to sit there and wait for Giacomo Piccini to rejoin, but somebody must have been on the radio saying, David, that was probably your fault. What you got to do now is get down the road as far as possible if you've got to take a drive-through or a post-race penalty. And the key thing then was preserving 2nd place, because those two had got so far ahead of Paolo Roberti. They were actually a lap clear of the 3rd place Ferrari. And David Perel, as far as we can read it, will retain 2nd place. And therefore Giacomo Piccini and Rino Mastronardi take a 2nd win of the season. They will be easily the championship leaders, taking maximum points to this point of the season. Okay, only 2 rounds in, but 2 victories and 2 pole positions.
And next time out, it's back to the Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet in the south of France, when the battles will resume again. And if this first couple of races have been anything to go by, going to be an absolute cracker in the 2020 Le Mans Cup.
Yeah, there are definitely a number of teams out there that can take victories.
At this Michelin Le Mans Cup in Spa-Francorchamps, it's Cool Racing, car number 37, Nicolas Moligny and Edouard Cope. And in the GT3 category, the winners here in Spa-Francorchamps, the Michelin Le Mans Cup, is Team Iron Lynx, car number 8, Rino Mastronardi and Giacomo Piccini. You may lift the trophies. You can lift the trophies for the camera, for the photos. Lift the trophies. Fantastic. And you may open the champagne. Our winners of the 2nd round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, Iron Lynx in GT3 and Cool Racing in LMP3. Congratulations.
Hayley Edmonds overseeing the podium presentation, obviously slimmed down to fit in with COVID-19 protocol, so just the winning teams up onto the podium rather than the top 3 in class. 51 laps completed for Cool Racing. They win it by 24 seconds over DKR Engineering, which keeps their championship bubbling nicely. Likewise for Neilton Racing and Colin Noble and Tony Wells. United Autosports, Wayne Boyd and John Sharman finished 4th ahead of the 26 car of Matthias Kaiser and Rory Penttinen, and it is Motorsport 98 at their home race, Dino Lunardi and the Belgian Eric de Donker to complete the top 6. In GT3, Iron Lynx, Giacomo Piccini and Rino Mastronardi, after a fashion, take victory because of the post-race penalty for 74 Kessel Racing of Michel Broniszewski and David Perel. Broniszewski, well, action from start to finish, really. Contact for that car before we got racing and right at the end as well. 3rd position in Kessel Racing, but a lap off. The ultimate result was Paolo Roberti and Murad Sultanov. And getting to the finish, Ollie Hancock and John Hartshorn in the 4th placed car. More post-race reaction, this time then from Iron Lynx, because that looked like very, very thirsty work indeed. For Giacomo Piccini, with his late spin, he still takes victory.
I'm joined here by Giacomo Piccini, winner of the GT3 category here at the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and the team Iron Lynx. Firstly, can we talk about those final 5 minutes, the battle between you and Perel? That was so intense from your perspective. What was it like?
Yeah, it was tough. Actually, Rino did an amazing job also today. The victory is more thanks to him because he could get a good advantage. I was struggling a lot with the car, and yeah, the last lap Perel catched me, and yeah, I did everything to defend, trying to be correct. I already had a warning for the track limit, so here it's very, very difficult, because if I would have done another, I would have get a drive-through as David get. So I mean, it was really tough, but at the end, I managed to do that. So I'm super happy. The team did an amazing job as usual. So thanks to everyone, Iron Lynx, Deborah, Claudio, Sergio, my brother, Rino, all of us. It's fantastic to be again in 1st position.
Rino, Giacomo, congratulations. Well done.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, his teammate Rino Mastronardi, the real superstar in that combination. We already knew about Giacomo Piccini's pace, and found himself a really good bronze teammate there. And Cool Racing, all of a sudden, are in the championship fight for me. They've been there or thereabouts, but that race, really makes a lot of people sit up and take note.
Ironic that on the hottest day of the year, it's Cool Racing who come through at the top of the field. Iron Lynx, just the final bullet in the gun that did have 3 ahead of 3 Kessel Racing cars as we head back to Sir Paul Ricard in the south of France at Le Castellet for round 3 of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And Johnny, you'll be calling it all up again?
Yes, indeed. There'll be another Saturday evening affair in the south of France. Probably similar weather conditions as we've had this weekend as well. At least we keep our fingers crossed for that. My thanks to Hayley Edmonds down in the pit lane, to John Hindhoff, from Johnny Palmer here at Spa-Francorchamps. Join us again for the next round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Bye for now.